Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Are you ready to reach for the stars? Tune in to The Lost Wanderer, the #1 monthly podcast on good pods in astronomy. Join our host, Jeff, as he takes you on an interstellar adventure to explore the mysteries of space and the wonders of science. From rocket launches and distant galaxies to the latest discoveries in astronomy, each episode is a thrilling ride through the cosmos. Don't just gaze at the stars. Come explore the universe with us. Follow The Lost Wanderer wherever you get your podcasts, and let's discover the stars together.
My dad was really, really special, and I loved my dad a lot.
I'm proud of him, and that even though he isn't here with us, but he died as a true hero.
I miss everything about him.
In the moment that the officers and I had to come see the children, my biggest reaction was, I don't have 7 arms. I have 7 children who just lost their father, and I don't have 7 arms to wrap around them.
I'm Frank Silla, chairman of the Stephen Silla Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Our foundation is committed to delivering mortgage-free homes for Gold Star families and fallen first responder families.
To not have to worry financially is a huge peace of mind. The thought of, what in the world will I possibly do to pay the bills? How will I possibly let the children have a life that feels normal? I don't want them to have to quit their piano lessons or their basketball. I don't want them to feel that we have to move into a little apartment and struggle financially in addition to the emotional weight.
There are over 1,000 families that need our help. Tunnel to Towers is honoring those heroes that risked their lives by providing them with mortgage-free homes.
Those who serve us and then lay down their lives protecting our freedoms and our safety, the least we can do is $11 a month to give them that peace of always knowing there's a home, there's that sanctuary when life feels like it's been tipped upside down, because it has, when you lose a parent in the line of duty, to know you can go home, you can be safe, there's no risk of losing your home. That's a peace of mind that I can't believe you can get for $11 a month.
I'd like to ask you to contribute $11 a month to support their efforts.
Please donate $11 a month by calling 1-844-BRAVEST or visit tunneltotowers.org.
Independence. With that declaration, America was born. Inspired by a belief in the God-given rights of every human being. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Our government was established to secure these rights and for the good that comes from exercising them well. This is why the founders of our great nation chose independence. as do we. Hillsdale College accepts no government funding because independence makes possible the good to which we aspire. Hillsdale College, pursuing truth and defending liberty since 1844.
Ready to learn some medieval combat, kiddo?
You bet, Dad. Let's do this.
You know, spending quality time with your kids is important, but finding a fun and safe way to do it can really be a challenge. That's where halberds come in. Halberds are the perfect way to bond with your kid while teaching them about history and physical fitness. Plus, they're a blast to play with. So next time you're looking for some family fun activity, grab a halberd and get ready to make some memories.
Come on, Dad. Round 2.
Halberds, bringing families together one medieval battle at a time. This commercial brought to you by the KLRNradio.com Ad Council.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the number one way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
I don't know why, it doesn't even matter how hard you try. Keep that in mind, I designed this rhyme to remind myself how I tried so hard. In spite of the way you were mocking me, acting like I was part of your property. Remembering all the times you fought with me, I'm surprised it got so. Things aren't the way they were before. You wouldn't even recognize me anymore. Not that you knew me back then, but it all comes back to me in the end. You kept everything inside, and even though
And welcome into the Friday Eve edition of the Rick Robinson Show. Already got about 40 of you popping in here. Thanks for stopping by. Make sure you're liking the feed, sharing the feed, following, subscribing, whatever your options are, wherever you're watching us from, because we're all over the place. If you hung out with us last night, or if you wanted to check out one of the new shows that just dropped last night, I promise I'll have it on the RSS feeds later today. I forgot how long it takes to download 7 hours of video footage and then start converting it. So yeah, that'll be up later this afternoon. But anyway, hope everybody's having a great Thursday. For those of you working for the weekend, you are almost there. I know when I did the Monday through Friday thing, it became like this weird thing. I actually enjoyed Friday more than I enjoyed the weekend, because by the time I did everything I had to do on Saturday and then tried to enjoy Sunday, I was like, Jesus, it's already fucking Monday tomorrow? Really? Yeah, so I feel you guys' pain. But then again, I've also been able to retire and now do everything that I absolutely love to do, even if I grumble some. But anyway. All right, so yeah, funny thing. Even when you're doing your dream job, you still occasionally catch yourself grumbling. One of the reasons why I've just tried to tell everybody, just find something that you love to do, even if it's just a hobby. Because as long as you've got something you really enjoy doing, it helps take the sting out of everything else. Because let's face it, we were sold a bill of goods by our education system. We were sold a bill of goods by our government. And almost all of it was wrong. And you want to know any even more proof of how broken and backwards everything is? I got into a Twitter spat today over somebody talking about, how there's been like, if you lost $10,000 in the stock market recently and now you've gained 400, all the MAGA folks are jumping up and down because they found 400. It's like losing $10,000 and finding 400. I'm like, dude, You do understand that if you don't sell during a correction, I mean, and even if you do it right, if you know what you're doing and you sell during a correction, one, you can still make money. And two, at the same time, if you don't sell anything at all, you haven't technically lost anything. There's a reason it's called unrealized losses and unrealized gains. And before anybody says anything to me, I understand that the government does some shady shenanigans with stock portfolios when they're going up or going down, and they try to count those losses or those gains. They don't tax them, but they do try to count them. One, that's retarded because that actually defies the exact definition of unrealized, which is something that hasn't actually occurred yet or become reality. So the fact of the matter is, unrealized losses are not losses unless you take the L during the downswing. And look, the markets are being crazy again today, but they've been a roller coaster. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Trust me, I'm not happy about it either. I still have a decent chunk of change hanging out in the stock market right now. So I get it. But part of the problem that we have here is we have been lied to about so many different things for so long and been told they were the truth that now a lot of us are finally starting to wake up and been like, dude, we never should have fallen for all this crap. All these things about Social Security. This drives me nuts. Do you realize that most people, the maximum you can put into the Social Security system per year is 10 grand, depending on how much that you're making? You can't even voluntarily put more than that in there, which I find insane. The other thing is, if you were investing that same amount in your own fund and you doing like one of the safe mutual funds from like the S&P 500 where they give you like a percentage of the return and keep a small percentage for administering your fee, but you don't eat any of the losses. You could have retired with millions of dollars in the bank. Your government didn't want you to know that, though. The reason I have always felt like taxation is theft, even before apparently there was either a timeline shift or the Libertarian Party's always been retarded. You take your pick. Because I remember researching this when I first started everything, and everybody was like, oh my God, our income taxes are technically unconstitutional, and Congress has to vote to keep them going, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And I remember everybody talking about that. But then a couple of years ago, when I started doing research on it again, I realized either that was never the case or it's not the case now because there was actually an amendment passed that made taxation okay. That happened a long time before I was alive, apparently, but I never remember anybody talking about it before until the last couple of years ago. Now, again, this isn't the conspiratainment show, so I'm not going to go too far down that rabbit hole. But all I'm trying to say right now is you have to understand that just because the government decides words don't mean what they actually mean, and the Democrats are lovely at that, by the way. They do that all the time. They change the meaning of words almost every single day. They change what biology means. Biology is not a science anymore. Now it's magic 8 ball. Oh, we don't actually know, even if they were, you don't understand. The doctors are assigning them a gender when they're born based on what equipment is present on the outside. It doesn't actually mean that they actually are that gender. This is the same people that think unrealized losses are actual losses, by the way, because they're not. I get it. I understand. But all of this is stemming from the same thing. These people don't understand economics because they're not being taught economics. If we were being taught kitchen table things like how to balance checkbooks, I know that's not a thing anymore, but how to keep track of your money and how to make sure that you have more money coming into your house than you have going out of your house, everybody would be doing much better than they are. But we've all decided that we have to have all the things all at once. And I'll admit, sometimes I'm just as bad about it. It used to be a lot worse before I got older because I was the first one that was like, man, I work hard for this stuff. I want the flat screen TV and I want this and I want that. And sometimes, even if I couldn't afford it, I was the dumbass that went to like Rent a Center and made sure that I had it and then paid 4 times what I should have paid originally. But it was okay because I had it right then and there. So I'm not saying that I am the bastion of good choices here. I am saying that based on the fact that I typically make the wrong choices over and over and over again until I went, oh shit, yeah, none of that actually worked. Let's do this way instead. I understand exactly what our president is currently trying to do. So everybody's also saying, well, he blinked. He blinked. He didn't actually blink, guys. He realized that because everybody was willing to work with him, he could actually change tactics. This is part of having a hands-on leader because he realized certain parts of it were working and other parts weren't. So he changed strategies. And I knew he was going to change strategies as soon as he put his initials behind it's a good time to buy. I knew that was happening because I'm like, yeah, he's about to announce something. But for everybody that looks at the DJT is like, oh my God, that's insider trading. He told everybody to buy his stock right before he announced that he was putting a pause on all the. No, it's not. Have you not, dude? Have you not seen it? People that have other people that run their accounts when they do their own posting will put their initials behind it. If he was trying to tell people to buy DJT, assuming that's even a stock, he would have put a dollar sign in front of it because everybody does that. That wasn't what he was saying. He was saying, "Hey, this is a good time to buy," and it's not even necessarily about the fact that he knew the market was about to swing the other way. It's about if you have the money and you can play in the market, buying low and selling high is how it works. If you're wanting to make short-term gains out of it, actual realized gains, not just leave it in there for the long haul and wait for all the zeros and ones to sort themselves out until you hit the cash out button. Because the other thing that drives me absolutely nuts, ladies and gentlemen, most of the gold and the silver and the dollars that everybody's talking about today, they're all ones and zeros. This is what happens. This is why when there are runs on banks, countries collapse because there isn't enough tangible money to actually satisfy the need if everybody goes to a bank and says, I want all my money out. Because it's all digital now. It's all ones and zeros. This is why the government has magic money printers. I'm still pissed off about that, by the way. I don't know why more people aren't. I know I haven't brought that up in a while, but I honestly don't know why more people aren't pissed off about that. Because if the government, who is supposed to work for me, has the ability to make magic money from thin air anytime they need it, why don't we? I'll tell you why. Because they know it would destroy the economy. Guess what? When the government fires up the magic money printers, it also destroys the economy. Now, I don't really understand what's going on with the market today because with the numbers that have just come out within the employment and the fact that we're actually getting close to being below the threshold they usually try to keep us at for inflation, and with oil prices where they are right now, which I have to admit, we are getting close to it being a problem for oil. So we're going to have to figure something out because if it falls below $60 a barrel, oil companies aren't making money and they start shutting down wells. So this is why I'm saying it's always been a balancing act. You need to keep it around 60 bucks a barrel, which keeps prices usually better. I understand why they're letting it dip lower now because they're trying to force the prices down even faster. But at some point, there's going to have to be a correction on that too, or we're going to start having a different type of a problem. But look, everything Donald Trump has been trying to do has been working, despite the judges trying to stop him, despite the Democrats screaming and yelling and hemming and hawing and talking about how terrible everything is. Pardon me. It is all working. I mean, these numbers prove it. The job numbers outpaced expectations spectacularly. And these aren't government jobs. So we're not talking about robbing Peter to pay Paul to prop up the economy, which is what the Democratic administrations always do because they want the government sector to be the strongest one because look at the numbers. Like 80% of the people that work in the government sector support their causes. So they're creating their own perpetual money machines. Now we're seeing things like USAID being shelved. We're seeing USIP going away. And now you've got all these places that depended on that money screaming and yelling that they don't have access to it anymore. And it's not just that. This is everywhere. This is nuts. I mean, I'm going to go through these inflation numbers with you real quick, and I'm going to put the chart up on the screen so you can actually see what I'm talking about before we move on to anything else, because I do want to talk about this because this is a huge deal, and it should be something that everybody's celebrating, but it's not. Now, core inflation is still at 2.8%. What I don't like about these numbers is the fact that the government has been using funny math to make them work for a long time. So I don't like these numbers being used, but since it's the only metric that we have access to and it's the only one that everybody seems to follow along with or give a shit about, then let's take a look. Because as of right now, core inflation is at 2.8%. Overall inflation is actually down down by 2.4%. This is insane considering where we were. So we're actually dropping at this point, we're actually below where they normally try to keep overall inflation. They usually want an overall inflation rate of about 2%. I never really have understood that because And it just proves to me that so many people don't actually understand what inflation means, because here's the thing, and I know I've explained this before, but I'm going to explain it again. When you have inflation moving up at 20%, that's basically an airplane flying at a 20% angle, which is right about here. So everything's going up at this rate because that's the projected rate that everything's going up at. When you drop to a 2% rate, it's not going up as quickly, but everything is still increasing, meaning prices are still getting more and more expensive, even if it is at a much slower rate. The thing that I don't like about these numbers is they pull so many different things out of them to make the numbers make sense. And all the economists within the government do this, because if they actually let you know what the real inflation rate was, you'd be making a run on the banks. And they know that. So they don't want you to know that, because it would cause a panic. Just like with the unemployment numbers. If people stay unemployed for long enough, whether it's because they just decided they're going to give up and go on Social Security or take early retirement, or they just start their own business, then they start removing those people from the numbers so that they don't, so it doesn't cause a panic when suddenly it's like, well, there's like 10,000 people that quit 6 months ago and they just aren't going back to work, and we don't want to leave them in the numbers. That actually started under the Reagan administration, because with the boom that was happening, there were so many people that were leaving the 9 to 5 life and actually starting their own companies, that in order to not make the economy look worse than it actually was, because of all the companies that were sprouting up, they figured out a formula to start removing those people from the equation. The problem is when you start monkeying with those numbers, whether it's the employment numbers, whether it's the inflation numbers, whether it's the cost consumer index, all those things. And trust me, the government monkeys with every single one of them. It doesn't matter what the letter is behind their name. Then you're not getting the real picture anymore. And if we're supposed to be in charge, we kind of need the real picture so we know what's working and what's not. But we don't get that. This is probably the closest to a real picture that we've seen, because we have an administration that's willing to pretty much tell us everything. Even the stuff that puts egg on their face, they will tell us. I don't remember the last time I saw this. And I understand that that has shaken public confidence a little bit. But I respect the fact that this time around, he's like, you know what? We're just telling them everything for the most part. I mean, there's things that they haven't told us yet, but they have been working on releasing a lot of information. They've been entirely transparent. And now there's even more coming out about this Signal chat thing that makes it even less of a deal than the Democrats wanted it to be. Now you've got, I wanted to say Chuck Schumer, but it's not him. It's the other guy. The guy that used to be a Congress critter that is now a senator out of California. His face is right there, but I can't think of his name. Oh, Shifty Schiff. There we go. I knew it would come to me eventually. I just had to rewind the memory tape there. But yeah, so now he's like, I'm demanding answers from the White House to find out who may have been able to take advantage of what amounts to insider trading with all of this roller coaster stock market shit. Look, I get it. Every side screams about that. But until we're actually going to do something about everybody who's able to take advantage of that within the government, everybody should probably just sit down and shut the fuck up. Because nobody can logically explain to me why people that make $175,000 a year are worth $20 million. Nobody can. Nobody even tries. So until you can, stop. You know, one of the easiest ways to make a lot of this stuff stop is to stop leaving them in the insulated DC bubble for months of the year. Because they're in DC, other than for vacations, about 10 months out of the year. This means that there's an entire lobbyist group that has built itself up around the DC area to make sure that they can go bend Congress critters' ears whenever they need to. This makes sure that there's this giant bastion of bullshit that we used to refer to as Washington, D.C., that when they're insulated within that, they just do whatever the hell they want to do, because they know it used to take forever for their constituency to find out what they were doing. They haven't adjusted to the fact that thanks to social media and the internet and everything that has become, we do have near instant access to information. The problem that I have, and trust me, there's a reason I'm going into this the way that I am, is because something else has been bothering me. Because as we've come to terms with realizing that our legacy media has become more of a zombie than anything else, and that the only thing zombies do is try to propagate themselves. So the longer people watch them or listen to them, the more zombie-like they become. And then it just keeps going and going and going and going. So there's been this new media movement now for about as long as I've been trying to do this. And it's finally starting to take hold. I mean, places like Town Hall and Red State and The Blaze are finally starting to be recognized by government groups. And you've got Newsmax and all these other things that have popped up. and even some newer folks that I just found out about over the weekend, that I haven't really checked out yet. And this is coming from somebody who is actually trying to go to work for one of these places that I will not mention because I haven't heard anything back yet. But and no, not officially, just as a contractor, because I'm not ever letting go of this stuff. And to sign on with somebody officially, I would have to kill my brand. I'm not willing to do that. Anyway, sorry, I wasn't trying to do the whole dark helmet thing and start talking into a cup of coffee, so my voice sounded weird. I just wanted to take a sip and realized I was still talking. But so Newsmax did a thing today, and I'm 99% sure it was on purpose because apparently, I guess Kash Patel has been spun down as the interim director of the ATF now that somebody else is being appointed. This makes me a little sad. I'm not gonna lie because I was hoping that that meant that they were going to be folding the ATF into the FBI, which would make perfect sense to me because just saying. Um, but so Newsmax reported that he was being ousted and just ousted, didn't actually mention which place. So everybody started reading. It was like, oh my God, they're trying to say he's out as the FBI, and that's not an FBI director, and that's not actually what's happening. Let me explain it to you for those of you who don't understand how this works. Breaking through the signal to noise ratio usually requires some form of shenanigans. And it usually means that you do things on your website that you don't tell people that you do, like putting in backlinks that nobody knows about that basically give you traffic from other websites. So it gets counted to your site because you've put a backlink into it. And it also involves putting out sensational headlines or cool titles or things that you're not necessarily even talking about or that you don't even correct until halfway through your show because you just want people to tune in and give you that boost for as long as you can have it because that's how you monetize. The problem is, and trust me, I know every single one of those tricks. And I was telling my team today after I saw what Newsmax did. What bothers me is I've known all these tricks for the entire time that I have done this, even with everything that's changed, even with the way the world has moved on a bit. Some of those tricks are still how a lot of people get things done. And then once you get noticed, you start decommissioning the backlinks and everything else so that you're getting legit traffic on your website. Or you stop doing quite so much of the sensational BS because you're getting noticed on your feeds. The problem is, once you've decided that that is your goal, is to get attention at all costs so that you can start building up your revenue, then eventually you become addicted to that revenue and you're willing to do anything that you can to keep it. You're willing to do anything that you can to hang on to it. It's kind of like that line from Star Wars Episode 4 when Leia's looking at Han Solo and saying, if money is all you love, then money is what you shall receive. Because that's kind of the end all and be all for a lot of these people. It's about being noticed. It's about being the top dog. It's about getting all the attention. It's about getting all the clicks. And they're willing to do whatever they have to do to make that happen. Which is why you're seeing so many people from the first Trump administration who were diehard Trumpians who have gone the other way with it because they realized that there were quite a few folks that were being turned off. And at the same time, they thought that Donald Trump was done. They thought the Republican brand was dying, so they jumped ship. And since then, they sold themselves as independents or moderates, and now they're basically lockstep with the Democrats because they're chasing the money. It doesn't have anything to do with their actual beliefs. It doesn't have anything to do with what they stand for. They are chasing the money. And people like that piss me off because I could do the same thing, but I don't want to. And you deserve better. This is what makes me so mad about all the people that give all the views and all the attention to the people that blatantly lie to you just so that you'll click on something and then suddenly they're getting millions of impressions because everybody's coming to see it and then they're awesome. And no, they fucking lied to you. Why do you want to be lied to? Why do you need to be lied to? Why is there this human nature thing that we are willing to listen to whatever anybody's willing to tell us as long as it's what we want to hear? Doesn't matter if it's true or not. I don't understand that. I never have. I never will. And trust me, I grew up in an era of fish stories. So I'm not saying that, everything that everybody says that comes out of their mouth always has to be 100,000% true because everybody exaggerates to a point. There are white lies. There are practical jokes. There's all kinds of things that sometimes get spun out. So I'm not one of these people, you have to be 1,000% honest all the time. No, but when it matters, when you're trying to tell people about something, when you're trying to make sure that they understand what it means, you damn well better be being honest, because it better not be about sensationalism. Because if it is, if the new media is going to act like the old media, that means we don't have any media. We have a bunch of propagandists. And if we're just going to be propagandists, then we might as well start calling ourselves propagandists and be done with it. I will give you my opinions almost every time I'm on the air. But that's what I get paid to do. Whether it's writing articles, whether it's doing shows, most of the time I get paid to give my opinions based on what the news cycles are saying. So I don't necessarily consider myself a full-fledged member of the media. Now, I do try to do things a little bit differently most of the time when I'm doing stuff for Digital Beacon, because I do consider that more of a traditional news outlet. But because I'm not willing to do all those sensational things, it's not really growing yet. You know what? I don't care. If this was about the money for me, I would have already figured out a way to do all of that, because I know how. Anybody that's been in this business long enough knows how. Because you learn all the tricks. And then you have people that are like, well, if you pay me this amount of money, I can get your website up and running, and I can get links coming in that give you traffic from other stuff, and you get all the credit, and you do this and you do that. Like, no. Look, if what we do here isn't enough to break through the signal to noise ratio, then there's no point. I mean, I'm still going to do it, because I don't just do it for you guys. This is my therapy. After going through counseling for 2.5 years after my last divorce, I realized I get more out of doing stuff like this than I ever did sitting in front of a counselor. Because the other thing is, because I am an ordained minister, I have had, psychological training and everything else. And I realized about 8 months in to these counseling sessions that they were telling me everything that I tell other people when I counsel them. And I get it. Doctors, nurses, counselors, depending on circumstances, make the worst patients. But I'm like, if I already know all of this stuff, and I know I do, I don't really need to pay somebody else to tell me what I already know. It really is that simple. Apparently one of my neighbors got a new duck. It's been nice today, so I have the windows open to the studio, and I'm hearing a quacking sound that I had heard before. So I guess one of my neighbors got a new duck. Anyway, sorry, got distracted by shiny things. We are up against a break, so we're going to take that real quick. Okay, that was a really long sort of monologue / some of the stuff we're going to be talking about today. So we'll get into more of the detail-oriented stuff on the other side of the break. Again, just want to take a moment to say thank you to everybody hanging on the chat. I see Denny and Raptor so far. Anybody else, our chats are open. About the only one that I can't see you in, should you decide to chat there, is Rumble. But I do usually try to pop in over there a couple of times. I can't talk today. This is what happens when I work until 2 in the morning and then get up and do an early show. Hi, my name is Rick Robinson. This is my show. We'll be right back.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
This is Derek's O'Reilly Auto Parts story.
After the third time jump-starting my car, I finally realized my battery was dying. So I stopped by O'Reilly to have it checked. They tested it right there in the parking lot. It was bad, real bad. But they helped me find the right battery for my car and even installed it for free. Now my car starts like new.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Hi, I'm Mike, founder of DollarShaveClub.com. What is DollarShaveClub.com? Well, for $1 a month, we send high-quality razors right to your door. Yeah, $1. Are the blades any good? No. Our blades are f***ing great. Each razor has stainless steel blades, an aloe vera lubricating strip, and a pivot head. It's so gentle a toddler could use it. And do you like spending $20 a month on brand name razors? 19 go to Roger Federer. I'm good at tennis. And do you think your razor needs a vibrating handle, a flashlight, a back scratcher, and 10 blades? Your handsome-ass grandfather had 1 blade and polio. Looking good, pop up! Stop paying for shave tech you don't need. And stop forgetting to buy your blades every month. Alejandro and I are going to ship them right to you. We're not just selling razors, we're also making new jobs. Alejandro, what were you doing last month?
Not working.
What are you doing now?
Working.
I'm no Vanderbilt, but this train makes hay. So stop forgetting to buy your blades every month and start deciding where you're going to stack all those dollar bills I'm saving you. We are DollarShaveClub.com, and the party is on.
I know karate, I know jiu-jitsu, and drive like a gangster when I'm coming to see you, see you, see you, see you.
Celebrity designer Jeff Lewis is back with Hollywood House Lift.
I'm excited to be working with new clients.
I'm not getting rid of that.
I hope I never see you both again.
An all-new season.
Those have to go. That has to go.
From oh, wow,
It's been an actual nightmare.
to oh, wow.
This is such an upgrade.
With celebrities like Josh Duhamel, Christina Ricci, and Gina Rodriguez. Dazzle me, Jeff.
It looks like Chuck E. Cheese.
Stream an all-new season of Hollywood House Lift with Jeff Lewis, now streaming on Freevee.
I'm Jordan Klinger, an attorney at McIntyre Law. The decision to hire an attorney after you've been injured is important. The decision on who to hire is even more important. At McIntyre Law, we will settle a case if the offer to our client is fair. Partial justice is no justice at all. At McIntyre Law, we are committed to obtaining full justice for our clients. Contact McIntyre Law at 405-917-5200 or visit us at mcintyrelaw.com.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
And now, the nations of the world, brought to you by Donald Trump. United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru, Republic, Dominican, Cuba, Caribbean, Greenland, El Salvador, 2, Puerto Rico, Colombia, Venezuela, Honduras, Guyana, and still Guatemala, Bolivia, then Argentina, and Ecuador, Chile, Brazil, Costa Rica, Belize, Nicaragua, Bermuda, Bahamas, Tobacco, San Juan, Paraguay, Uruguay, Suriname, and French Guiana, Barbados, and Guam, Norway, and Sweden, and Iceland, and Finland, and Germany, now in one piece. Switzerland, Austria, Czechoslovakia, Italy, Turkey, and Greece, Poland, Romania, Scotland, Albania, Ireland, Russia, Oman, Bulgaria, Saudi Arabia, Hungary, Cyprus, Iraq, and Iran, there, Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Jordan, both Yemen, Kuwait, and Bahrain, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, Belgium, and Portugal, France, England, Denmark, and Spain, India, Pakistan, Burma, Afghanistan, Thailand, Nepal, and Bhutan, Cambodia, Malaysia, then Bangladesh, Asia, and China, Korea, Japan, Mongolia, Laos, and Tibet, Indonesia, the Philippine Islands, Taiwan, Sri Lanka, New Guinea, Sumatra, New Zealand, then Borneo, and Vietnam, Tunisia, Morocco, Uganda, Angola, Zimbabwe, Djibouti, Botswana, Mozambique, Zambia, Swaziland, Gambia, Guinea, Algeria, Ghana, Burundi, Lesotho, and Malawi. To go to Spanish Sahara is gone. Nigeria, Chad, and Liberia, Egypt, Benin, and Gabon, Tanzania, Somalia, Kenya, and Mali, Sierra Leone, and Algeria, Namibia, Senegal, Libya, Cameroon, Congo, Zaire, Ethiopia, Guinea, Bissau, Madagascar, Rwanda, Majorca, and Cayman, Hong Kong, Abu Dhabi, Qatar, Yugoslavia, Great Mauritania, Pennsylvania, Monaco, Liechtenstein, Malta, and Palestine, Fiji, Australia, Sudan.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Trump tariff song. I found this while I was on break and decided we had to share it. So there you go. All right. So just so I can give credit where credit is due, it looks like that was put out through an account that goes by at JRU69. you're not following them yet, I would suggest doing so. Tell them you found out about them from my show. That would be amazing. Just saying. All right. So anyway. All right. Sorry. That made me laugh. It may not have made you laugh as much as it made me laugh, but hey, it's my show. My entertainment value is the only thing that really matters. No, not really. Just kidding. Sort of. All right. So let's see what else we can get into here. So let's see. Oh, wait, it looks like Scott Jennings is back in the news again, so we may have a clip here in a second. I'm trying to see what it has here. Or how long it actually is, see if it even matters to play. That's long enough. We can run it. Okay, hang on. Some of you were like, oh my God, why does it take so long? Just a reminder, I am my own producer. So all of this stuff is happening all at the same time. And it's me doing it. So yeah, there you go. Stop. Plus, I need to get a new mouse. My mouse is retarded. Or it could be the operator, but I think it's the mouse. Close enough. Let's go. Are you kidding me right now? It did it to me again. I hate it when it does that. Hang on. I'm going to have to remember just to stop trying to pull articles from.
Doesn't work that way. Well, that is what they're trying to do. And in this new world order, yeah, absolutely. When they're looking at Greenland and say, I like it, I want to take it for mine, that is a very colonized.
You have said you are pro. I have never ever said we're going to go to Greenland and quote colonize it or steal it.
You're not a member of government, so you're irrelevant at that point. I'm talking about the president of the United States doing that.
You got fired from your job.
You can agitate.
Scott, if you want to engage in personal insults,
I don't, but you
what
do.
you lack in a legitimate point, you make up for in personal insults. The point I am making is in this new world order, we are looking at countries, whether or not they're an adversary or ally, it is being determined on what kind of deal we can get. And we cannot govern, we cannot legislate that way. We are increasingly isolated on the world stage. No, we're not. So if you want to engage in personal insults,
we're not
if I were you, I would reserve that for your party, who is increasingly isolated. This blow our position
outside of the United States.
Land, you cannot just go and say, I like it, it's mine now. It doesn't work that way. Well, that is what they're trying to do. And in this new world order, yeah, absolutely. When they're
all right, so I went ahead and played the first part again because I realized I probably stepped on it. But yeah, so the interesting point of this entire conversation about her talking about his relevancy is she was fired from her gig. So that made that kind of funny. I do love the fact that they're still talking about a new world order. That's exactly what we're trying to break the back of, ladies and gentlemen. What nobody wants to understand is the WTO and the WEF all basically do the bidding of China. One of the things that makes these tariffs the amazing thing that they are, and Amish and I kind of talked about it last night, is now apparently because China only lets like 25 outside movies into their entire country in any given screening year. 25. This is why you have all of the major U.S. movie companies basically climbing under the table to fillet G to try to make sure that they actually get their movie into that market, because it's a huge market, and I understand that. But thanks to these tariffs, China's like, we're not letting any of the movies in anymore. Good. Maybe they'll go back to making shit that actually people want to watch instead of making shit to please the Chinese. I doubt it, but we can hope. I mean, the movie industry is dying. I mean, COVID nearly killed it. Amish and I were talking about this a little bit last night. Everything from Hollywood's been decentralized because there were so many different places that opened up faster than California that they started putting studios in almost everywhere. Hell, even Oklahoma has movie studios at this point. Granted, smaller scales than everybody else, which is what pissed off the Tulsa King folks. Because I guess whoever put that one in, billed it as more than it was going to be, and it wasn't enough to fit their needs. But we do production work here in Oklahoma. Hell, I have a friend who's a movie extra. Every time they have a movie production going on here, she's like, I'll be off for a week. I'm going to go do this. I'm like, that's just cool. I've never been brave enough to do that. I honestly thought about it, and I'm like, yeah, no. Because they actually, I mean, the thing about it is, if you don't know this, movie extras get paid. So if you're lucky enough to become one, and depending on what it is, I know most of the time, like she's usually on a set for about 5 days because she'll usually wind up being an extra in multiple scenes. Actually, in I believe it was Final Destination 2, she died 3 times in 3 different scenes. But she makes like $125 a day to go hang out on a movie set. So I've thought about it. I really have, especially now that I'm home all the time anyway. Um, but then again, they're not usually looking for a fat, wobbly guy with a crazy eye. So I don't know how well that would work out. I should put that in my bio. Fat, wobbly guy with a crazy eye who talks politics 24/7. Not really, because I do other shows too, but still, it feels that way. Did I mention I was up until 2 a.m.? So if everybody's wondering why I seem a little more punchy than usual, and yes, I said usual, uh, then that would be why. All right, so this is kind of a big deal because everybody had questions about that today. This just happened. This came out from Matt Margolis. The House has apparently adopted Trump's budget blueprint. They weren't sure for a minute. So, in a dramatic display of party unity, House Republicans narrowly approved a crucial Senate budget framework Thursday, paving the way for President Trump's ambitious legislative agenda. The measure cleared the chamber with a razor-thin margin of 216 to 214, representing a significant victory not just for Trump, but for Speaker Mike Johnson as well, as he pushed for rapid approval of Trump's America First agenda. This is a huge deal, and I understand there are things inside of this that aren't making everybody happy, and not everybody has a warm fuzzy about everything that's in the bill. But that's one of the things that nobody really understands about how negotiation works. If both sides don't leave just a little bit pissed, you're not doing your job right. So the fact that we're able to get this pushed through, there are even some things in there that I don't like. But this is necessary right now because we have to prove to the American people that we actually can govern. Because that's what the Democrats always say. Every time the Republicans are in charge, it's nothing but chaos. And look what happened. As soon as this news broke, I just saw things that were red in the stock market starting to turn green again because I have a little ticker up on my computer. Now, I haven't looked at the full markets, but I'm looking at one that is basically, it was on the buy list for today because like 5 minutes ago, it was down by 5%. Now it's up by 61.2%. So if I'd had the money, I damn sure would have bought that one today. But like I said, my stuff that's in the market, it's not liquid, so I can't really shift it around very well. But yeah, so this just happened. So the framework's passage follows intense negotiations with conservative members who had initially expressed strong reservations. President Trump's personal endorsement and strategic outreach to skeptical right-wing lawmakers proved pivotal in securing the necessary votes. The remarkable party discipline was particularly evident, with only 2 Republican representatives breaking ranks. Thomas Massie, who's pretty much a no on any spending at all, and Victoria Sparks from Indiana. It was not, however, an easy path to victory for the GOP leadership. More than a dozen hardline House conservatives had come out against the Senate resolution, vowing to vote against the legislation if it came to the floor, out of concern over the level of spending cuts mandated in the measure. The opposition forced Johnson to yank a planned vote on the measure Wednesday night, as leadership held open an unrelated vote for almost 90 minutes. Johnson huddled in a room off the House floor with several of the conservative holdouts in an unsuccessful attempt to secure their support, prompting the delay. The linchpin in leadership's effort appeared to be a joint press appearance Thursday morning by Johnson and Senate Majority Leader John Thune, Republican South Dakota, where the pair delivered brief remarks regarding spending cuts. The hardliners were incensed that the budget resolution directed Senate committee to find far fewer spending cuts than House panels, at least 1.5 trillion compared to at least 4 billion, worried that the upper chamber would reign supreme. During the remarks, Johnson pledged to include at least $1.5 trillion in cuts, while Thune indicated that the Senate was aligned with the House in terms of what the budget resolution outlined in terms of savings. Thune's remarks were persuasive enough to win over House hardliners and bring them on board. The first time publicly the Senate leader has come out and actually said that we're in the same ballpark with the House and the Senate reductions. Rep. Andy Harris, Republican Maryland, I think that's what that is, because they're doing the definitions weird. The chair of the abbreviations, the chair of the conservative House Freedom Caucus, and obviously we were happy with the House spending reductions because we all voted for it. So I think that's a step in a positive direction. This successful vote marks the conclusion of the first phase of the budget reconciliation process, which Republicans hope to leverage to advance Trump's domestic policy priorities. This initial step involves both chambers adopting a resolution that serves as a roadmap for the rest of the procedure. This victory comes in the wake of the passage of the continuing resolution that was passed and signed into law last month. However, as the Hill notes, this is only the beginning of what will likely be a tough process. Republicans in both chambers must craft a package that is in line with levels laid out in the budget resolution and make decisions on a number of hot button issues like spending cuts, how long the tax cuts are extended for, and the cap on the state and local tax deductions, among other details. All right, so yes, this is only the beginning, and I understand that, but it's a step in the right direction. The problem that I have here is we keep being bogged down with all of these things that actually should have been done already. So this is something that just came across my feed last night, and it's something that we have to talk about today because this is in line with the same stuff that we were just talking about. This is from PJ Media, Mark Tapscott. Following is the prepared testimony delivered by John Hart, Chief Executive Office of OpenTheBooks.org, the Illinois-based nonprofit watchdog that makes public official spending at all levels of government. His testimony was delivered Tuesday, April 8th, before the Government Efficiency Subcommittee of the House Oversight and Accountability Committee, which is chaired by none other than Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican, Georgia. New Mexico Democrat Rep. Angela Stansberry. That's weird. I actually know somebody that used to have that name, and it's not her. That's weird. Is also the ranking member. Now, at this point, we're going to be reading through some of the testimony. Madam Chair Green, Ranking Member Stansberry, and distinguished members, as we gather in this cavernous auditorium, we have an opportunity to reflect on not just the costly problem Madam Chair Green described in her opening statement, but its root cause. Today's expansive, excessive, and sometimes opulent federal real estate portfolio is both a monument to the administrative state and a mausoleum of lost dreams, opportunity, and freedom for the American taxpayers. In the early 20th century, progressives like Herbert Crowley dreamed of managing a complex new world with a managerial class. Crowley believed in quote-unquote increasing control over property in the public interest. He would no doubt be pleased to see this auditorium in the administrative state's impressive portfolio of office space. This hearing is also an opportunity for Congress to turn away from this failed policy of the past and reestablish our founders' timeless vision for the limited constitutional government and transparency. At Open the Books, we view transparency as a first principle in a free society. Our work, in part, enabled by landmark bipartisan transparency legislation, the federal fund. Let me check something real quick. Nope. Okay, I just wanted to make sure there wasn't an actual video of this, so I wasn't reading all this if I didn't have to. Our founders wisely prioritized transparency and wrote it into the Constitution. Article 1, Section 9, Clause 7 says that a regular statement and account of the receipts and expenditures of all public money shall be published from time to time. I would like to point out that doesn't actually happen that often anymore, at least not in the way that we should be. So we helped craft legislation, the Federal Funding Accountability and Transparency Act of 2006, the Coburn-Obama bill. Again, we helped craft that when I was working for Senator Tom Coburn, Republican, Oklahoma. The bill created usaspending.gov and put all federal spending online for the first time. So note that these words precede the Bill of Rights, the First Amendment, and our right to free speech itself in the public square. Transparency is like oxygen. We can't speak if we can't breathe. When we looked at the federal real estate portfolio and opened the books, we discovered the high cost of decorating and redecorating the administrative state. To taxpayers, today's hearing is quite literally a kitchen table issue. Every family can relate to the cost of furniture. That's why taxpayers are so incensed when they learn that federal agencies are freely spending billions of dollars every year on high-end pieces. Since fiscal year 2021, executive agencies have spent more than $4.6 billion, and again, that's billion with a B, on furniture alone. That amount could buy 9.2 million American families a modest $500 kitchen table. Of course, workplaces need desks, chairs, and meeting tables, and it's true that beautiful spaces can make us more productive, but beauty at what cost and on whose dime? Do federal employees need 7 figures worth of abstract modern art to make the government run? The State Department spent $1.4 million on artwork for various embassies, including $200,000 to procure a pair of custom paintings from a contemporary abstract artist. Do they need high-end leather recliners worth thousands of dollars each? Our embassy in Islamabad is a place where you can put your feet up thanks to 40 Ethan Allen chairs, which cost taxpayers $120,000. During the peak years of the COVID emergency from 2020 to 2022, agencies spent $3.3 billion on furniture, even while everyone was working via Zoom. Meanwhile, a refresh at DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, came with high-end Herman Miller furniture and a $250,000 price tag. And the SEC, the folks that are supposed to watchdog and make sure, Congress critters and everybody else aren't doing illegal shit with our stock market money, managed to spend $700,000 furnishing a single conference room in New York. $700,000 on one conference room. If this shit doesn't piss you off, then something is broken. I haven't even made it halfway through the article yet, and we've outlined billions of dollars of waste. We're talking about billions of dollars that were spent during a time when the offices weren't even being used. We're talking about almost $1 million. We're talking about almost $750,000 to revitalize one conference room. This is people not giving a shit about your money and not giving a shit about my money. I don't give a shit what capitalists do with their own money. I don't. If you've built a company that's making $50 billion a year and you decide you want to spend $2 billion of that annual income to make your office look like the fucking Taj Mahal, I don't care. But we're not talking about private sector money. We're talking about public sector money. We're talking about your money, about my money. How many people, how much cost is being driven up? Also, as a matter of fact, just to point this out, how much of this is being overinflated because it's the government? Because everybody pads their fucking invoices with the government. That's what drives up costs everywhere else. Because anytime somebody gets a hold of a government contract, we'll just tack an extra 25, 30, 35% on, because it's the government and they're good for it. You know how I know? Because I know people that did that. That's how I know. You know how I know? Because I follow history. How many times did the people that created the railroad and crossed and basically made it cross country, how many times did they pad their invoices and they're like, no, it's the government. They're good for it. They're good for it. And again, if this stuff doesn't piss you off, then I don't really understand why. Because it's insane. All right, so let's get through this. I've got about 2 minutes to finish it up. So, an added burden to taxpayers is that many spaces are in long-term disrepair. Federal buildings need $370 billion in fixes. All in all, we have an incomprehensible amount of physical space and furnishing, too much of it inefficiently procured, leased, and maintained. At Open the Books, we believe taxpayers are demanding transparency and accountability instead of expanding federal agencies. They want Congress to expand their agency and their right to pursue happiness on their terms with their resources. Thomas Jefferson once wisely said, "The natural progress of things is for liberty to yield and government to gain ground. Every dollar saved in Washington is a dream realized somewhere in America. The administrative state's well-decorated real estate portfolio is a worthy place to start." Okay, so if you would like, and I'll put this in the chat in a minute, there's actually a full video of this that you can check out, preferably after the show's over, but, you do you. Just saying. So let me get that ready to go, and then we will get ready to take the break. Oh, I hit the wrong button. One moment, please. Because I may actually go back and watch this later while I'm working on other stuff. So the reason why I'm marking it for myself. Do. Oh, I hit the wrong button. 1 second. I keep hitting wrong buttons today. But then again, they changed the interface. I used to be able to get to the full show chat by clicking on the thing on the side, and it doesn't do that anymore. It does some weird abbreviated version of everything. It's all weird, I tell you. It's all weird. All right. So anyway, for anybody who wants to, that is there now, and I have it bookmarked for myself later. And let's take the break because we're pretty much there anyway. Hour 1 is in the books. If you would be so kind, because it costs you nothing, please make sure that you are sharing the feed, liking the feed, subscribing to and/or following, depending on where you're finding us, and tell your friends. My name's Rick Robinson. This is my show, and it's almost Friday, so hang tough. For those of you on the East Coast, you're about to come back from lunch. Keep me in. Use an earbud. I won't tell anybody. For those of you in God's time zone, you're about to go to lunch. Same rules apply. We'll be right back.
I'm not afraid to take a stand. Take a stand. Everybody, come take my hand. Come take my hand. Walk this road together.
Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Are you ready to reach for the stars? Tune in to The Lost Wanderer, the #1 monthly podcast on good pods in astronomy. Join our host, Jeff, as he takes you on an interstellar adventure to explore the mysteries of space and the wonders of science. From rocket launches and distant galaxies to the latest discoveries in astronomy, each episode is a thrilling ride through the cosmos. Don't just gaze at the stars. Come explore the universe with us. Follow The Lost Wanderer wherever you get your podcasts, and let's discover the stars together.
My dad was really, really special, and I love my dad a lot. I'm proud of him, and that even though he isn't here with us, but he died as a true hero. I miss everything about him.
In the moment that the officers and I had to come see the children, my biggest reaction was, I don't have 7 arms. I have 7 children who just lost their father, and I don't have 7 arms to wrap around them.
I'm Frank Silla, chairman of the Stephen Silla Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Our foundation is committed to delivering mortgage-free homes for Gold Star families and fallen first responder families.
To not have to worry financially is a huge peace of mind. The thought of, what in the world will I possibly do to pay the bills? How will I possibly let the children have a life that feels normal? I don't want them to have to quit their piano lessons or their basketball. I don't want them to feel that we have to move into a little apartment and struggle financially in addition to the emotional weight.
There are over 1,000 families that need our help. Tunnel to Towers is honoring those heroes that risk their lives by providing them with mortgage-free homes.
Those who serve us and then lay down their lives protecting our freedoms and our safety, the least we can do is $11 a month to give them that peace of always knowing there's a home, there's that sanctuary when life feels like it's been tipped upside down, because it has, when you lose a parent in the line of duty, to know you can go home, you can be safe, there's no risk of losing your home. That's a peace of mind that I can't believe you can get for $11 a month.
I'd like to ask you to contribute $11 a month to support their efforts.
Please donate $11 a month by calling 1-844-BRAVEST or visit tunneltotowers.org.
was born. Inspired by a belief in the God-given rights of every human being. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Our government was established to secure these rights and for the good that comes from exercising them well. This is why the founders of our great nation chose independence. As do we. Hillsdale College accepts no government funding. Because independence makes possible the good to which we aspire. Hillsdale College, pursuing truth and defending liberty since 1844.
Ready to learn some medieval combat, kiddo?
You bet, Dad. Let's do this.
You know, spending quality time with your kids is important, but finding a fun and safe way to do it can really be a challenge. That's where halberds come in. Halberds are the perfect way to bond with your kid while teaching them about history and physical fitness. Plus, they're a blast to play with. So next time you're looking for some family fun activity, grab a halberd and get ready to make some memories.
Come on, Dad. Round 2.
Halberds, bringing families together one medieval battle at a time. This commercial brought to you by the KLRNradio.com Ad Council.
I'm Jordan Klinger, an attorney at McIntyre Law. The decision to hire an attorney after you've been injured is important. The decision on who to hire is even more important. At McIntyre Law, we will settle a case if the offer to our client is fair. Partial justice is no justice at all. At McIntyre Law, we are committed to obtaining full justice for our clients. Contact McIntyre Law at 405-917-5200 or visit us at mcintyrelaw.com.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome back into the Thursday edition of the Rick Robinson Show. Welcome back into It's Almost Friday, and welcome to Rick's I Haven't Slept, so this is my sleep deprived playlist. It does consist of a lot of Linkin Park, not even playing.
And your voice was all I heard, that I get what I deserve, so give me reason to prove me.
All right, welcome back into the program officially. I would like to point out something because it's astounding to me. So, we talk about the not in my backyard policies when it comes to all the climate change BS. There's another this one's not in my warehouse, but it's a not in my warehouse policy because it astounds me the number of people this week that have basically admitted that child labor and slave labor is fine as long as they don't have to see it. As long as it leads to us being able to get the cheapest things possible, they don't care. As long as they don't have to see it. That absolutely astounds me. and it saddens me. But look, so one of the premises of today's show is that it's time to put the hammer down with China. And that's the truth, because whether you want to admit it or not, and I know we had a lot to do with it, we being the administrative state, not actual America, because we had no idea what the hell was going on. But with everything that we now know about COVID, with the fact that now we're finding out that there were cases of it in 2019, which I tried to tell you because I'm pretty sure I was one of them that wound up catching it somehow, because I went to the doctor like 3 times in 2019. Nobody could tell me what the hell was wrong with me. We think you just have a really bad strain of the flu. You'll be fine. Dude, I was sick for 2 months, like to the point where I was using all my sick days. The point my boss is yelling at me because I'm not at work. And I'm like, dude, I can't. And then like a month later, everybody's like, oh my God, the whole world's ending. And I'm like, see, can I have my sick days back now? You yelled at me because my last job was weird. So everywhere else, they were happy. If you took off and they didn't have to pay you for part of that time, they were happy. And the last job I had, if you went into what was called leave without pay, you could actually be fired for it. I came dangerously close to that with COVID because I used every sick day I had and still felt like crap. I even spaced some of them out. So there were days when I felt completely terrible and I was just like, you know what? I'm not doing it today. And then even when I was, and this is before we were allowed to work from home. So I'm like, you keep telling us if we're sick, stay home. But then you get mad at me when I'm sick and I try to stay home. Pick a lane. Sorry, frustrating. But look, China tried to kill us and China missed. And it's not just China, because in case you've forgotten, there is this thing called Agenda 2030. It's been out for a while. It was originally Agenda 2021. They assumed that by now, actually 4 years ago, before they reset the clock again, that every democratic wet dream would have been realized. We would be part of one centralized government now with a lot of centralized planning the world over, a decreased population, which makes us easier to control, and a bunch of sheep. And then it didn't happen. So then they changed it to Agenda 2030, which involves things like eugenics, which they can now do thanks to CRISPR technology. Think about that for a second. Which involves population control, which, since they've made it a prerogative for every woman on the planet, if you don't want to have a baby, you can just murder it. Hey, we got a BZ sighting. Welcome into the show, sir. Thank you for hanging out. I apologize I didn't get a chance to hang out in your chat on Tuesday because I was exhausted, but I will be hanging out there tonight because I got to run it live anyway. So you'll see me tonight, at least for a little bit, because I gotta work till midnight anyway. So I'll be there. But anyway, this is just dumb. All of this is dumb. And the simple fact of the matter is the deep state and China tried to destroy the world, and they nearly got away with it too, if not for us pesky kids that kept trying to tell you the truth, even though we were kept under thumb while we were trying to do it. Oh, by the way, I don't usually talk about this kind of stuff on air, but since you're here and I haven't told you yet, you got like 690 on your replay. No, I'm sorry, 960 on your replay last night. So it actually may have been more. I don't have the number in front of me. Anyway, get ready for BZ to have a stroke. Just kidding. All right. Okay. So speaking of time to put the hammer down with China, this is from our friends at Red State. So the Chinese embassy is like having kittens over everything that Donald Trump is doing right now. They even released this, and we're going to watch this first before we get into the video or get into the article. Sorry. One of these days, I'll remember how to talk. I get paid to speak, and I can't do it. It's not my fault. Dude, I'm telling you, working until 2 a.m. and then having to be up by 7, and that's actually even later than I planned on being up, is a bitch. All right, hang on. Let's get this queued up. Oh, that's not the right one. That's what happened. All right, so that's what I forgot. Okay, now you guys can see it, though, so you should be good. Now, I know you can't understand this, but I still want to play it.
以后是由俺是好也，或者美国的将来的什么政坛由他们去决定。就是说，他们要打多久就打多久。一次打到，现在胜利，时间要打多久？
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and read the subtitles because I didn't realize when I put it on the screen that it made them all go away. So this is at the fourth session of the First National Committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, CPPCC, and February 7th, 1953. So I'm going to go ahead and read through this because I didn't realize that it was going to cut it off. So I'm going to play it again. Sorry, you're stuck with it. As to how long this war will last is what he says there, and then I'm going to pause as I read. So as to how long this war will last, we are not the ones who can decide. It used to depend on President Truman, and it will depend on President Eisenhower, or whoever to become the next U.S. president. It's up to them. No matter how long this war is going to last, we'll never yield. Then, of course, there's all the thunderous applause, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. I don't remember if he says anything else or not. I think he just stands there soaking it in. Yeah, I was right. Oh, wait. Here we go. We'll fight until we completely triumph, or until 2 months later, whichever one comes first. And guess which one came first? 2 months later. So that's kind of the irony of them sharing this particular video while they're taking their super tough stance. This is again from Bonchi over at Red State. The Chinese embassy lashes out with an insane video, and it's time to drop the hammer. Now, I will admit, I had already been saying we needed to drop the hammer before I ever even paid attention to the headline, so I that wasn't where that came from. I'm pretty sure I said this yesterday. I agree with Mr. Wonderful. 400% tariffs on China till they cave. Because what will happen is Xi will get ousted because it may be a communist country, but when people get pissed off, bad things still happen. So on Wednesday, President Donald Trump announced that he had paused his global tariff regime for 90 days. That sent stocks soaring, but there was one notable exception: China. Instead of relief, the communist nation was slapped with an even higher 125% tariff rate, which in my opinion is still too low. How much has that rattled the CCP? By Thursday morning, their embassy was posting insane videos of Mao Zedong, if that gives you any indication. For laughs, here is Mao Ning's title: spokesperson for Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China, DG of Department of Press, Communications, and Public Diplomacy. Jesus Christ, why is it that Democrats and communists alike make their job titles as long as fucking humanly possible? Sorry, that was... Anyway. So, if that's not a lesson in the inefficiencies of communism, I'm not sure what is, but perhaps Ning and the Chinese embassy in the United States should calm down just a bit. For all that we won't back down, Oh, wait, sorry. Talk China spent for the first half of the 20th century, they were getting crushed by the Imperial Japanese until the United States showed up, and then spent the second half murdering 60 million of its own people. So maybe posting a video of the guy who did the latter isn't the best play here. That's especially true given that China's economy is a house of cards, overly reliant on exports and currency manipulation to remain afloat. Without American consumerism, the CCP is cooked, and all the protectionism in the world isn't going to save them. By the way, that video of Mao Zedong is from the Korean War era, and China would, in fact, back down 2 months later. So it's time to drop the hammer on China. As long as the United States can avoid a prolonged trade war with our allies, we have the leverage to make them bend the knee. If they refuse to do so out of sheer arrogance and the desire to save face, then their economy will be crushed, and the yuan won't be worth the paper it's printed on. It barely is now. If their embassy is going to post threats using Mao Zedong, then close their embassy. With a deal to buy TikTok off the table, it's also time to shut down that cesspool of a spy app in accordance with the law passed by Congress. That should have already been done, in my opinion. I'm kind of mixed on that one. I have a TikTok account, but I didn't get it until I didn't have government, state apps and stuff on my phone. I don't know. I mean, I know businesses that have taken off because of TikTok, so I do have kind of a mixed bag of feelings on that because as somebody that's trying to break into that, thing of, doing this and suddenly, there's enough money coming in where I can not only pay my bills, but all the other things that I would love to be able to do. We all pray for that when we do these kind of things, and TikTok has helped a lot of people be able to do it. Now, granted, TikTok has helped a lot of people doing stupid stuff be able to do it. Like, I don't understand the entire craze of, people putting out videos, pretending to eat the reactions of the people that are watching their video. But apparently, TikTokers eat that shit up. So it makes no sense to me. Maybe I'm just officially getting into that get off my lawn phase. Who the hell knows? But yeah, I agree. It may be time to deal with all of that. China needs to tread lightly because the longer this goes on, the more it has to lose. American companies are already moving supply lines and seeking alternate manufacturing sites in other Asian nations. Once that happens, those corporations will never return that production to China because the risks are just too great. The CCP will lose its economic foothold for forever.
China is asshole.
Is saving face and puffing their chest out more important than that? I mean, to a lot of American politicians, it has been. So do we expect China to really be any different? I mean, how many people, once they decided we were going to not be a manufacturing nation anymore, and you hear Democrats, I mean, hell, I heard Jessica Tarloff say it yesterday. America doesn't want to be a manufacturing nation. And who the fuck told you that? I realized that there was a policy shift in the 60s and the 70s, and suddenly we decided we were going to be the commerce center of the world and be everybody's money change tables and everything else. But I don't know very many Americans who were like, oh, yeah, we're just going to completely do that and make everything about consumerism. That's why we are where we are today. So all of these artificial intelligence videos that are showing fat people sitting behind sewing machines, because that's how the Democrats envision this new return of manufacturing to America, just proves to you exactly how retarded they are and exactly how retarded the Chinese are, because the Chinese have been ripping us off from the second we started trying to trade with them, and we have let them get away with it. As somebody who has raised children and is now helping to raise grandchildren, when you are dealing with people that you don't show them when they screw up that there are going to be consequences, eventually when there are consequences, they don't know how to react. And that's exactly what you're seeing from the Chinese embassy today. They don't know how to behave because up until now, this has never been a problem because we have wanted and needed that market so bad, especially in places like the NBA and Hollywood and everywhere else. They have wanted those Chinese consumers because they have amazing numbers, or they did. That's the other thing nobody's talking about. China's back to declining populations again. They lost more people during COVID than anybody wants to admit. This is another reason why, even before we started talking about the tariffs, a lot of countries were already looking to start moving some of their manufacturing and stuff to other Asian nations because China wasn't able to keep up anymore. That's why we've been having so many supply chain issues, which is also driving up the prices of everything. But everything Donald Trump is doing at home, even while he's fighting the current to do it, because the Democrats want everything to implode, and they always have. And a lot of Republicans feel exactly the same way. Everything's working. Look at the jobs reports that just came out. Look at the inflation reports that just came out. Look at egg prices now that we're not slaughtering birds anymore and letting bird flu run its course, which only makes the chicken stock that much stronger because only the ones that don't catch it are left. Which means the later generations will be immune to that form of bird flu. This is why things like this work. This is how this look. This is part of the problem of having an entire group of people that refuse to believe that there's some form of intelligent design around everything that we can see today. Because if it all happened by happenstance, then there needs to be human intervention, because that means everything was 1,000,000 to 1 shot and we just got lucky. But if you understand that nature has rules and laws and that things have been put in place by someone or something that intended a grand design, then you understand that most of the time when this stuff works, it works as intended. Now, I'm not saying there haven't been things that have happened. Like, we are now starting to understand so many different things about cancers that we never understood before. Like, I don't know if I've been reading some very interesting papers about things like people that grow up in abusive homes or that are abused by their parents are 90% more likely to wind up with chronic health issues like diabetes, things like kidney failure, even cancer. Because we're starting to understand the direct correlation of how our body and our mind process things. And the thing that we're really starting to understand in a lot of ways is some of what is causing cancer has nothing to do with what we thought it was. It's about faulty DNA. And we're just now starting to understand what's causing that faulty DNA. Now, as our understanding of science continues to improve, then the way we look at things will continue to change as long as we are willing to admit that science isn't perfect. That is the entire point of science. This is one of the reasons why I laughed my ass off the entire time that all the COVID talking heads were like, you just have to trust the science. That's the exact opposite of what science has always meant. You don't trust the science, you prove the science. Science is nothing but a theory or a hypothesis that has either been proven or disproven. Once proven, it becomes a theory. Still doesn't mean it's a fact. Just means that it's a theory. Based on as much information as we can plug into a system or as much research as we can do, we now believe this to be the case because we've been able to replicate it X number of times, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Science is always changing as our understanding changes. This is one of the things that we as a society and as a culture and as a group of people have struggled with since the dawn of time. Because remember, there was a time that everyone thought the world was flat. Hell, there's still the bit of the population today that believes the world is still flat. Science changes as our understanding changes. But all of this is important because this goes back to what I was talking about a second ago. When you start doing human intervention with genetic coding, you get things like COVID-19. This is one of the first indicators that we knew something was wrong with the narrative that we were being told. Because there were doctors and scientists that were coming out and saying what you are being told is not true because this has a synthetic spike protein. Anybody want to remind me what synthetic means? Kind of like the definition of unrealized. Dude, I'm still arguing with people about that shit today. Again, stop asking the question, how much more stupid can Democrats be? Because they're taking it as a challenge. Just stop doing it. Just stop. Or keep going because they keep proving just how much further they can go. That's kind of up to you. I'm not your boss. I can't tell you what to do. But look, the simple fact of the matter is China tried to kill us and they failed. Now, it wasn't just China's fault. There was some deep state involvement. There were some American groups. I'm sure a lot of alphabet soup agencies were involved in there somewhere. But at some point, they decided it was time to pull the trigger on their whole Agenda 2030 thing. And it might have been, I mean, the leak may have been an accident. I'm not saying that it's not an accident. I don't have enough data one way or the other to tell you that whether it was accidental or not. But with the amount of cover up that happened, from the fact that now we know that there were service members that had COVID-19 like symptoms all the way back in 2019 during the World Military Games, which took place on the same block as the Wuhan lab. Yeah, that's a coincidence. Not. And then as hard as China fought, if you stupid Americans tell people this is our fault, we will come after you. We will destroy you. It's just insane. All of it is nuts. All of it is nuts. It just drives me. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be as cranky as I'm coming across today, I promise. But yeah, this is just nuts. All right, so let's see what BZ just put in the chat. Sorry, it doesn't open from inside where I'm at. Yeah, no. We talked about that earlier today when it broke, but you've got a clip here, so I think we're gonna play that. So hang on. I think it's a clip for it anyway. Maybe not. So yeah, and we talked about this a little bit, but since BZ was kind enough to share a different take on it, we're going to go over it again because we may have new people joining us anyway before we take the bottom of the hour break. So in a massive victory for President Donald Trump and House Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican Louisiana, why is everybody doing that now? When did they change the format on state abbreviations? It's annoying. I've noticed that with every article. I'm guessing the AP made a change again because that's everybody's format that they use. Sorry, it drives me nuts when they change things. The House of Representatives passed a bill Thursday that will set the stage for a massive conservative policy overhaul. The legislation passed mostly along party lines on Thursday morning after a long night of negotiations between House GOP leaders and fiscal hawks who were critical of its spending cut levels. Just 2 Republicans voted against the legislation. Republican Thomas Massey, Republican Kentucky. Who's surprised there? Absolutely nobody. And Victoria Sparks, Republican Indiana. And it passed 216 to 214. No Democrats, of course, supported it, as expected. Johnson and Senate Majority Leader John Thune, Republican South Dakota, held a press conference on Thursday morning in a bid to allay conservative concerns. Now, as we talked about earlier, this is the beginning step of this process. This sets the framework. So this clears them to start getting to work to figure the rest of it out. So this is still going to take a minute, but this is huge news. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me either. Sorry, I'm catching up with the chat. BZ just said Gabbard is sending people into the CIA and FBI files to determine if anything was missed regarding the JFK assassination. Oh, there's a cabinet meeting happening right now? We might actually see how much of that we can get into after the break, but we do have to take a break. I'll see what I can find while we're on the break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Did I miss her hotness again, too? Hate it when I miss those. I didn't get any notifications about a press conference today. I usually do when I didn't, so maybe there wasn't one. Anyway, we'll be right back. Don't look at me in that tone of voice. If you're not air guitaring to that part of the song, you're not living life right anyway, and I don't even want to talk to you anymore. Just kidding. You're right back.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
This is Derek's O'Reilly Auto Parts story.
After the third time jump-starting my car, I finally realized my battery was dying. So I stopped by O'Reilly to have it checked. They tested it right there in the parking lot. It was bad, real bad. But they helped me find the right battery for my car and even installed it for free. Now my car starts like new.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Hi, I'm Mike, founder of DollarShaveClub.com. What is DollarShaveClub.com? Well, for $1 a month, we send high-quality razors right to your door. Yeah, $1. Are the blades any good? Our blades are f***ing great. Each razor has stainless steel blades, an aloe vera lubricating strip, and a pivot head. It's so gentle a toddler could use it. And do you like $2 a month on brand name razors? 19 go to Roger Federer. I'm good at this. And do you think your razor needs a vibrating handle, a flashlight, a back scratcher, and 10 blades? Your handsome-ass grandfather had AIDS and polio. Looking good, pop up. Stop paying for shave tech you don't need. And stop forgetting to buy your blades every month. Alejandro and I are going to ship right to you. We're not just selling razors, we're also making new jobs. Alejandro, what were you doing last month?
Not working.
What are you doing now?
Working.
I'm no Vanderbilt, but this train makes hay. So stop forgetting to buy your blades every month and start deciding where you're going to stack all those dollar bills I'm saving you. We are DollarShaveClub.com, and the party is on.
I know karate, I know jiu-jitsu, and drive like a gangster when I'm coming to see you, see you, see you, see you.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
welcome back into the program, ladies and gentlemen. And I found it.
So just reordering.
I found the cabinet meeting, so
has
we're going to join
dramatic
that in
implications
progress.
on
So let me fade this down so
security
you guys
of the
can
world.
actually
So we
hear.
thank you. An important meeting, thanks to you, is going to
Keep it
happen
rocking
on
next
Saturday for the first time in a long time. There'll be direct talks between Ambassador Woodcoff and a top-level leader in Iran. We hope that'll lead to peace. You've been very clear what Iran is never going to have is a nuclear weapon, and I think that's what led to this meeting, and we'll wait for him to come back from it, and we're hopeful about that. I would also say that we are receiving, and I think the Department of Homeland Security can confirm this, historic cooperation from countries all over the world. Number one, in taking back their citizens. Every country in the world has to take back people that are illegally in another country, and we have countries that refuse to do it or will kind of ignore our calls. All of them are doing it. The ones that are not are paying a price. And we've also found cooperation in other countries that are willing to take some of these people, some very dangerous criminals. I know the president of El Salvador will be here next week, has really been a good friend of the United States in that regard. These are some of the worst people you'll ever encounter, and Pam knows this, and Christy knows this from the work they're doing. And one last point I want to make, Mr. President, and again, it's under your leadership, it's actually under your executive order. If you come to this country as a student, we expect you to go to class and study and get a degree. If you come here to vandalize a library, take over a campus, and do all kinds of crazy things, we're going to get rid of these people, and we're going to continue to do it. So when we identify lunatics like these, we take away their student visa. No one's entitled to a student visa. The press covers student visas like there's some sort of birthright. No, a student visa is like me inviting you into my home. If you come into my home and put all kinds of crap on my couch, I'm going to kick you out of my house. And so, that's what we're doing with our country, thanks to the president. And last but not least, very important development this week, but both Pam and I were very excited. The finest higher education institution in the United States, University of Florida, is also now the national champions in basketball, and we hope you'll host them here soon, Mr. President. Go Gators.
They're coming. They're coming. They're coming very soon. Well, thank you very much. You're really doing a great job. We appreciate it. Any question?
Mr. President, can you give us a reaction to today's stock market drop, and also give us a sense of the next steps with China?
Well, I haven't seen it because I've been here for 2.5 hours, so I'll be seeing it. I think Scott went out. Scott, you want to have a statement on that?
Sure. Look, the up 2, down 1 is not a bad ratio, or up 10, down 5. And I think as we have talked about, as we go through the queue and settle with these countries who are going to bring us their best offers, we will end up in a place of great certainty over the next 90 days on tariffs. We had very good inflation numbers today. Oil's down. We had a successful bond market, so I don't see anything unusual today.
And next steps for China, sir?
Well, we'll see what happens with China. We would love to be able to work a deal. They've really taken advantage of our country for a long period of time. They've ripped us off beyond nobody. How people stood for it, sitting in my position, is not even believable. And we're talking about many presidents, not just a couple. But they did, and all we're doing is putting it back in shape. We're resetting the table. And I'm sure that we'll be able to get along very well. I have great respect for President Xi. He's been, in a true sense, he's been a friend of mine for a long period of time. And I think that we'll end up working out something that's very good for both countries. I look forward to it.
Mr. President, China retaliated today by reducing the number of American films that can be shown there. What's your reaction to them now targeting cultural exports from the United States?
I think I've heard of worse things. Yes, please.
Also on China.
Hey, maybe it means they'll start. I said this earlier. Maybe it means they'll start making movies that don't suck again. All right, back to this.
Can the U.S. verify this? And if so, what does the U.S. plan on doing to China to counteract that?
We'll look into it, but I think beyond that, we're really looking to get that war stopped. They're losing 2,500 and even more than that young people a week. They're Russian and they're Ukrainian. They're not American, but they're people. And we're seeing if we can get it stopped. And I think we're making progress. I appreciate the ballerina who was released. It was at the request of a very good friend of all of ours, actually. Dana White called me and he said it's the friend or the relationship of one of the fighters for UFC or one of the fighters. And Dana's an incredible guy, and we spoke to President Putin about it, and they made a deal. They released the young ballerina, and she is now out, and that was good, so we appreciate that. We hope that we're going to be able to make a deal relatively soon with Russia and Ukraine to stop the fighting. It's so senseless. It's such a horrible thing. It would have never happened if I were president, but it did happen, and we were given that card, and I think we're going to get it. I think we're going to get it stopped. Got to get going. We got to get it. We have to move it faster. Likewise with the hostages, we're making progress. There's 59 hostages, but only 24 of them are living, and that's the way it's been presented to me by the mothers of some of the dead, mothers and fathers of some of the dead hostages, and they want the bodies of their baby, as they say, their baby, their young boys. They want them back as much as if they were alive. It's amazing, because when I met the hostages 2 weeks ago here, I couldn't believe what they had to go through, by the way. But when I met them, they said, yeah, there's 59, but 24 are living. And they actually consider, I guess if you're a parent, you do consider it this way, that the remainder who are dead, the 24 that are alive, the remainder that are dead, they want them back just as much as they would want them back if they were alive. It's really pretty amazing and pretty sad. So we're getting close to getting them back. We have a lot came back. A lot of people are very grateful. Some came back in pretty bad shape. Some came back, they're okay. I think they're going to be scarred mentally for a long time, because if you sit down and talk to them, as I have, what they went through is incredible. But we're making progress. We're dealing with Israel. We're dealing with Hamas, and it's a nasty group.
Mr. President, how close are you to the first country coming to actually make a deal with the United States over tariffs? Is it days, months?
Well, I think it's very close, but we have to have a deal that we like. We don't want a deal that's going to be a bad deal, or I could make every deal in one day if I wanted to. I could do this in one day. I could just say, here's what we'll do. And I was saying to the people before, to Scott, mostly to Scott and Howard, and some of the other people that work with us on the negotiations. We have a lot of law firms that have paid me a lot of money in the form of legal fees. We're going to probably use those firms to, if we can, I think we can. I'll make a contribution to the country, but they're great firms. They're the best firms, the biggest, and really the most prestigious. And we may be using them to help you guys out, because you're going to need a lot of lawyers. And I'm not sure Pam's going to be happy if I say, can you send over about 200 lawyers that work on trade? She's working on criminal stuff, and I think that's going to be her focus more than anything else. So we'll find out if we can do that. But we have a lot of lawyers that you've been reading about, where they paid $100 million a firm on average. Now we have the final 4 or 5 are at $125 million. So I have a lot of legal fees I could give to you people, and we might as well use them. Hopefully I won't need that many legal fees or that much. I may. Who knows? After it ends, after we leave, maybe I'll need it. But if I do, it's not going to be very pleasant. So I think we're going to try to use these very prestigious firms to help us out with the trade, because we have a lot of countries. But we want to make deals that are proper for the United States, not just we can make deals easily. We want to make them proper.
Mr. President, if you aren't able to reach the deals that you want to see at the end of the 90 days, will you put those higher tariffs in place, or will you extend?
Well, that's what would happen. I mean, if we can't make the deal that we want to make, or we have to make, or that's good for both parties, it's got to be good for both parties. And then we go back to where we were.
Go back to the numbers that you announced last week.
I think so.
You wouldn't extend the pause?
Yeah. We'll have to see what happens at that time.
Thank you, Mr. President. You said yesterday you were considering some exceptions for companies. Can you talk about what you're considering? And then also on the reciprocal tariffs, you said they'd be substantially lower. Is the same math formula going to be used, or is that cost out?
I'm not considering now for any country or company, but it's possible that I would. But I'm not. We don't have that situation right now. People understand where we are, what we're going to do. But it could happen. It's called flexibility. You have to have certain flexibility.
But what are you planning on using the money that you're gaining from revenue through the tariffs on?
Paying down national debt, reducing taxes, creating good budgets, helping Christie with the border and all of the other things. I built hundreds of miles of wall, as people now understand, 571 miles of border wall in the first administration. But we're going to beef it up and we're going to add more. And, you know, the numbers are incredible, really. The numbers of what's taken place. We had great numbers, but these numbers are topping my last administration. And Christie and Tom Homan have done an amazing job, but you know, it's an expensive process. This weekend, where they used to have hundreds of thousands of people standing there pouring through the border in Tijuana, Mexico, this weekend they had nobody. You had a man sweeping this massive piece of concrete, which is, you know, the area where they said massive. And I've looked at that during the Biden administration. You couldn't see a piece of that concrete. There were so many people on it. You couldn't, if you had a helicopter shots, you couldn't see concrete. Now, this weekend, you had nobody there but a man with a broom sweeping it and cleaning it up. Pretty amazing. It's really an amazing job. But it will be used for that. It'll be used for a lot of things. It'll be used by the Department of Justice for doing a great job. Pam is doing a fantastic job. So it's going to be used for a lot of different things.
On the 10% tariff, is that a basement? Is that the
It's a baseline.
Can countries negotiate that to bring that?
It depends on what they're adding. You know, some countries we have massive deficits with, or they have big surpluses with us, and others it's not that way. So it depends. That's why it's really they're all different. Every country is different. Some have certain advantages that others don't have, and certain things. We have some. China has a surplus of $1 trillion. I mean, the numbers are crazy, and others have basically no surpluses. You know, we have some that are pretty even, but they hurt us in other ways, and we just want to get that taken care of. So everyone is a little bit different.
So are you negotiating with the EU as one bloc or individual nations for the tariffs?
We're looking at it as one bloc. They've been very tough, but they were very smart. They were ready to announce retaliation. And then they heard about what we did with respect to China and others, but China. And they said, you know, we're going to hold back a little bit. They decided to hold back. I thought they were very smart. Look, the EU is very smart, but they really have taken advantage of the United States. They were formed for the purpose of taking advantage of the United States. And I don't blame them, and I don't blame China. I don't blame anybody. I blame the people that were sitting at that desk in that other beautiful Oval Office for allowing it to happen. Many presidents I blame. They should have never allowed it to happen. And I'm doing something that a lot of them wouldn't want to do. But I'm here, I do those things, and we're going to make this country great again. We were taken advantage of by almost everybody. I sat back in the last administration. I would actually read them. I don't have to read them now. I know them so well. I would read some of these documents that were signed, deals, and I said, who would do a deal like this? Who would do it? You've seen it, Elon. Yeah. I'd look at deals where it's so one-sided. Even we have a deal with Japan, and we get along great with Japan, and we had the Prime Minister here. He was fantastic. As you know, Abe was great. Shinzo was great. He was a good friend of mine, unfortunately no longer with us. But we defend them, but they don't have to defend us. I said, that doesn't sound too good. But we have a deal where, a defense deal. We pay hundreds of billions of dollars to defend them. But if for any reason, in other words, we pay all the money. They don't pay anything. But if we're ever attacked, they don't have to do a thing to protect us. I said, well, that sounds like a wonderful deal. So that's just one out of thousands. And I just wonder who did this. And it's people that either hate our country or didn't care, an expression that you use. I think it's really a lot of them didn't care. It's just hard to believe how bad They are. Now, that's a little bit of a defensive deal, but I'm talking about trade deals, the same thing. They're so bad, you would say, how come? And even when I'd renegotiate, like, I'd go to a country, they'd give me everything I asked for. I said, why didn't somebody ask for it, like, originally? They give me everything. I think when they were negotiating, they didn't care, or they didn't ask, or they were shy, or they were very stupid, or they hate our country. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
You were speaking about Japan. Can you clarify what your vision is for U.S. Steel? You referenced it yesterday.
Yeah.
There's some questions about what you actually want
Sure.
to see.
Look, U.S. Steel is going to do very well now because of tariffs, and I don't know why they even need a deal. But the only thing is, U.S. Steel, if you go back 80 or 90 years, that was a behemoth in this. That was our biggest, most. If we were around, we would have been very proud of it. Today, we have different types of companies that are big. Google, it's not the same as U.S. Steel, and I love Google, and I got to like the people that run it. Very capable people. They didn't like me so much in the first administration, but they like me a lot now. I don't know what happened, but I like them. But I think they would be the first to admit, when I envisioned, you look at some of those steel factories from 90 years ago, it was a different kind of a country, but they were miles long. Today you see just empty hulks. Those hulks are going to be filled up very soon because of what I'm doing with tariffs. It was a different kind of a thing. But if I didn't do that in the first term, my first term, if I didn't put tariffs on, we would have, because China and others were dumping steel, billions of dollars of steel. Our steel companies were all closing. Every fact, we wouldn't have one steel plant open, and now we have a steel industry that's doing very well. But soon it's going to be thriving, really thriving, and those factories are going to be filled up. But more importantly, they're going to build brand new ones. Nucor and so many other companies call me. Nucor being a big steel company, they're building massive new steel plants, and it's great. And likewise, car companies. We have many, many car companies. 3 of them. I'm not looking to hurt Mexico, and I like Mexico. And by the way, I think the new president is a terrific person, a fantastic woman. We've had many conversations. She's a very elegant, just a fantastic person. And she's been very nice, very, very nice. But I'm not looking to hurt them. But we have 3 car plants that were under construction in Mexico. They stopped constructing, and now they're going to build in the United States because of tariffs. See, we should have never let this happen, because whoever it was that was president at the time, we lost 90,000 plants and factories since NAFTA. 90,000. It's not believable. How about that, Laura? You're in that sort of world of factories and plants.
Manufacturing, construction jobs, bring those workers back home.
That's right. We're going to bring them all back. But think of it, from that period of time, which isn't so long ago, we lost. I said the other day, if you had a map on a big wall like this, and if you had pins, 90,000, I don't know if you'd have enough. I don't think you'd have enough room on the map to put the pins. 90,000 factories that we've lost since NAFTA. And it's not even, and about 6 million jobs, but really, I think probably a lot more than that, but they say 6 million jobs. We're going to bring many of that back. I think we're going to bring more than all of it back. We're going to be better and stronger than ever before. But if a president, when they were leaving, said, look, you can leave, but if you're going to build a factory someplace else, and you think you're going to come and sell your steel or your car or any product that you make, your pharmaceuticals, which we're going to do, we're going to get them all back. But if you think you're going to just, all they had to do is say this, and they wouldn't have left. I said it the other day. I said it with respect to, I made a speech a year ago, and I told them, if I win, we're going to charge a big, big tariff at the border. And people were thinking about building in Mexico a car plant. And I said, we're going to have a big tariff. So if you want to build a car, you're going to have to pay 25% more than the cost of that car. You're going to have to pay 25% tariff at the border. They would have never left. They could have kept everybody. If a president said, if you leave this country, you leave Michigan, you leave Detroit, you leave anybody, any of our states, because to me they're all the same. I love them all. I love them all, and I probably won them all. But they say I won most of them. But I think I won them all. But that's okay. But all you had to say if you were the president is, if you leave and you think you're going to now fire all those workers, leave all that, everything behind, and you're going to build in another country and sell it in here. No, you're not going to. You're going to pay 50% or 100% tariff. They would have never left. And all you had to say, Marco, all you had to say very simply is, you don't have to write it down. All you have to do is say it verbally. If you leave, you're going to pay 100% tariff. Therefore, don't leave. They would have never left. But they left 90,000 plants. I mean, it's hard to believe that many. It's not, you can't envision it. So just getting back to your, because I'm the great weaver of all time. To weave, you have to be a genius. To go on tangents, anybody can do that. But we'll get back to your original U.S. Steel. U.S. Steel is a big name in this country. It's Babe Ruth is a big name. We have a lot of big names, but not too many. U.S. Steel is one of the great names in the history of our country. And normally I wouldn't mind so much. I wouldn't be thrilled with it. But to buy for a foreign country, and we love Japan, but for a foreign country to buy that cherished U.S. Steel brand, that's hard for me to do. And somebody else may want it. The company Nippon that's involved with it is a big, powerful company who do a good job. But why can't they just build a plant themselves? I mean, why do they have to, take U.S. Steel? So as you know, I rejected the deal. Now they've come back in a different form. They're coming back as an investor. And, I feel better about that, I guess. But, I know them very well. I know they're thinking, it's the investor. They'll invest, and somebody else maybe is sitting in this chair, and they will no longer have an investment. They'll have the whole thing. That's the way it works. Very smart. They're very, very smart people. We're dealing with very smart people throughout the world. Great geniuses, actually. Look what they've done to our country. And again, I don't blame China. I don't blame anybody. If I could have done it, if I were in that position, I'd have great respect. I have great respect for the people. They ripped off the United States, and all we had to do, have a president that knew what the hell was going on. And none of those countries would have left. Those companies, none of them would have left. So that's a little lesson in basic business. And it's really basic business. It's not complicated business. It's very basic business. And we'd have every one of those car plants going just the way they were 30 years ago. None of them would have left. But now they're coming back.
Mr. President, the Labor Department has confirmed that $400 million went to fake people for unemployment benefits.
Yeah.
What's sort of your initial reaction?
I think it's terrible. I just heard it from Lori, and I appreciate it, and you heard it from Elon's people, right?
That's right.
Elon's done a fantastic job. Look, he's sitting here, and I don't care. I don't need Elon for anything other than I happen to like him. But I'm telling you, this guy did a fantastic job. I don't need his car. I actually bought one. And they said, oh, did you get a bargain? No. I said, give me the top price. I paid a lot of money for that car. But honestly, he makes a great car. You know what I do with it? I let the people in the office drive around in it. Margot and Natalie, they're all, Chamberlain, they're all driving around the most beautiful car. It's gorgeous. But I did that as a sign of, just a show of support. Numerous people have done that. Just a show of support, because he's done a fantastic job, but he hasn't been treated properly. Hasn't been treated properly. Yeah.
Mr. President, can you talk to us about your communications with China? Has President Xi reached out at all since the terror?
Well, I don't want to say who's reached out. I just say that I think it's going to work out, hopefully well. They're very big. It's hard to get over, if you're me, what they've done to our country. They've destroyed our economic base to a large extent. The good news is we're very vibrant, and we're going to get it back fast. We already have. Look, we're making $2 billion a day now, and during Biden, we were losing $3 billion a day. Biden was a disaster. He was the worst president in the history of our country. And to me, worse than that, because the money you can make if you have the right guy in this position, Worse than that was what they did on the border. By allowing the jails of the world, not South America, all over the world, to be opened up so that we take everybody from Africa, Asia, South America, Europe, the bad ones. They opened up their jails and they dumped them in the United States. And now this beautiful young woman who seems to be, boy, she loves what she does, though. I think she loves what she does because she's a patriot. She hates to see it. And Tom and all the people. But for us to spend, hundreds of billions of dollars this is just, I don't know. They either hated the country. Who would do this? Who would want millions of people to pour through an open border? We have no idea who the hell they are. And just walk right through. And half of them, whether you like it or not, you could look at them and you could say, they are not going to help us. These are some rough people. But they'd empty out their jails, and they'd empty out their mental institutions, insane asylums, and they let them into the United States of America. And inflation we can fix, and all of the other things we can fix. We'll get it going.
And we are fixing it. Trump is being Trump, so we're going to leave this now. I stayed with it for a little bit because I wanted to hear some of it. My usual luck lately, by the time I find out something's running, we're into the question phase. And when Trump gets into that, he just wants to stay there and chat with his friends for hours. So we're going to leave this lay, and we'll be right back. My name's Rick Robinson. This is my show. Hour 2 is in the books. Hour 3 coming at you on the other side of the break. If you would be so inclined, and it's entirely up to you, make sure you're liking the feed, sharing the feed. Hitting subscribe costs you nothing, wherever you're finding us at. And we'll be right back. Stay tuned. Hello, friends. You have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy. No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Are you ready to reach for the stars? Tune in to The Lost Wanderer, the #1 monthly podcast on good pods in astronomy. Join our host, Jeff, as he takes you on an interstellar adventure to explore the mysteries of space and the wonders of science. From rocket launches and distant galaxies to the latest discoveries in astronomy, each episode is a thrilling ride through the cosmos. Don't just gaze at the stars. Come explore the universe with us. Follow The Lost Wanderer wherever you get your podcasts, and let's discover the stars together.
My dad was really, really special, and I loved my dad a lot.
I'm proud of him, and that even though he isn't here with us, but he died as a true hero.
I miss everything about him.
In the moment that the officers and I had to come see the children, my biggest reaction was, I don't have 7 arms. I have 7 children who just lost their father, and I don't have 7 arms to wrap around them.
I'm Frank Silla, chairman of the Stephen Silla Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Our foundation is committed to delivering mortgage-free homes for Gold Star families and fallen first responder families.
To not have to worry financially is a huge peace of mind. The thought of, what in the world will I possibly do to pay the bills? How will I possibly let the children have a life that feels normal? I don't want them to have to quit their piano lessons or their basketball. I don't want them to feel that we have to move into a little apartment and struggle financially in addition to the emotional weight.
There are over 1,000 families that need our help. Tunnel to Towers is honoring those heroes that risked their lives by providing them with mortgage-free homes.
Those who serve us and then lay down their lives protecting our freedoms and our safety, the least we can do is $11 a month to give them that peace of always knowing there's a home, there's that sanctuary when life feels like it's been tipped upside down, because it has, when you lose a parent in the line of duty, to know you can go home. You can be safe. There's no risk of losing your home. That's a peace of mind that I can't believe you can get for $11 a month.
I'd like to ask you to contribute $11 a month to support their efforts.
Please donate $11 a month by calling 1-844-BRAVEST or visit tunneltotowers.org.
Independence. With that declaration, America was born. Inspired by a belief in the God-given rights of every human being. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Our government was established to secure these rights and for the good that comes from exercising them well. This is why the founders of our great nation chose independence. As do we. Hillsdale College accepts no government funding. Because independence makes possible the good to which we aspire. Hillsdale College, pursuing truth and defending liberty since 1844.
Ready to learn some medieval combat, kiddo?
You bet, Dad. Let's do this.
You know, spending quality time with your kids is important, but finding a fun and safe way to do it can really be a challenge. That's where halberds come in. Halberds are the perfect way to bond with your kid while teaching them about history and physical fitness. Plus, they're a blast to play with. So next time you're looking for some family fun activity, grab a halberd and get ready to make some memories.
Come on, Dad. Round 2.
Halberds, bringing families together one medieval battle at a time. This commercial brought to you by the KLRNradio.com Ad Council.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
You can't run the race, the pace is too fast, you just won't last. You like to think you're never wrong. You live what you do, you have to act like you're someone. You live what you do, you want someone to act like you.
Helps if I remember I was muted for the break. Unless you're a Democrat, then you've learned absolutely nothing. Case in point, Slavey Crockett doesn't know when to put a shovel down. She's still doubling down on the fact that the black woman lost because of racism. I would like to point out that if you were born anywhere in the 70s and 80s, then racism was virtually wiped out in this country within the 90s. And then suddenly things started reversing course. And that is largely because of the Democrat, outrage machine that became very profitable, who needed you mad at one another and hyphenating each other so that they could make you fight with each other, because that's how you make money.
Kind of like the same grift and graft they've been using with the climate change bullshit. But yeah, racism was virtually gone in this country. I mean, I had kids that I played with of every color. It didn't matter. It wasn't any like when we used to talk about Eddie Murphy when I was a kid. Hey, let's go see the new Eddie Murphy movie. Nobody said, "Hey, that African American dude Eddie Murphy, he's pretty funny for an African American comedian. We should go check out his new movie." No, nobody talked like that. You know, the only people that talked like that back then were the actual racists because they were the ones that had to put color in front of everything because that's how they viewed the world. Because if you weren't like them, you didn't count. We talked about this yesterday with Islam. Entire the entire religion of Islam is built that Islamic blood or people that are Islamic in descent. You know, I know it's a faith too, but it's still a thing. So Arabs and all of that nationality stuff, their blood is superior. Sounds like racism to me, but they're fine with it. And the word kafir basically means anybody who ain't us, and they're okay. It's okay if they die. We talked about that yesterday. This is where the concept of racism comes from. One particular race being better than the other. The simple fact of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, we grew up in a time when we tried to epitomize and actually live Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, where people were judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. Now it has to be even worse, though, because we want people judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin, not the amount in their bank accounts, not how much their daily income amount is, not their preferred gender, not their preferred sexual orientation. And yes, I said preferred for a reason. I know some of you hate it when I do that, but I'm saying what I said because it's the truth. But all of this, these things didn't exist when I was a kid. I mean, don't get me wrong, there were still holdouts. I've told you this story, and it was when I mean, this was still in the late 70s because it was what I was around. My granddad threw around words like coon and the N-word like they were nothing. And yes, I'll be nice and censor it for today. And yes, I mean that N-word, not Nazi. So one day, and I'm guessing at the time I had to have been about 4 or 5 because we were in the new house and they bought that when I was 3. So I'm thinking it was probably around age 4. My mom and I were at the mall, and without even thinking about it, as a little boy, I said, "Oh, look, mom, there's an N-word." I thought, well, my mom, I barely remember this, but I do remember some of it. Apparently, the dude was looking at me like he wanted to rip my head off, and my mom thought we were both dead. And she just apologized profusely and grabbed me and just kept dragging me and just like, "Just stop it." Look, I'm not saying it wasn't still there, but I'm saying it wasn't anything that we really thought about anymore because we literally were trying to do what was right, which is to stop looking at everybody on the outside and realize, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, I know we have nationalities and everything else, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't have pride in where we come from, but at the end of the day, we all bleed red, at least when oxygen hits it. That was one of the most confusing things for me for science because I was one of those kids that always learned things early, and it took a while for some of it to reach full understanding. So anytime everybody says, "Well, we all bleed red," I'm like, "Not really, because it's only red when it's oxygenated." Anyway, but yeah, so um, I'm not trying to add to that, but I was born in '73, and you were in college in '71. So do with that information what you wish, my friend. You're still awesome, though. All right, BZ put this on my radar while we were doing the whole. Well, actually, hang on, because I just clicked on the wrong thing. I was trying to help a friend while we were on break. I have to admit, I don't spend much time on Getter anymore. I mean, I have like all these different accounts that I've set up over time when X pissed me off. I don't spend much time on Getter anymore. I probably should start at least checking it out every once in a while, though, because BZ put this on my radar. I think I still have an account. I'm gonna have to figure that out. This is from Daily News. I'm not gonna play the video, I don't think, because I don't think you'd be able to understand it anyway, and Chinese writing makes my head hurt. But this is from Daily News. The owner of Kuili Electromechanical Factory in Tiazu, Zhejiang Province, China, says all orders sent abroad have stalled as increased U.S. Tariffs on China take effect. causing warehouses to fill up with goods. Small businesses have been hit hard in the trade war, he lamented. The closure of these businesses will exacerbate China's unemployment problem and the country's economy will collapse. But the dictatorial CCP, otherwise known as
China is asshole,
doesn't care. And they don't care about the livelihood of the Chinese people. Such a trade war is something the paper tiger, formerly known as China, cannot afford. And that's just it, ladies and gentlemen. If you really want to get technical with the way everything has been run for the last 30 to 40 years, every economy on the planet is basically a paper tiger. And it's all a house of cards because it's all a bunch of ones and zeros. We were talking about this in the opening of the show. If there were a run on banks today, society would collapse because there isn't enough physical money to keep up with the demand because governments have created magical money printing computers that just spit out new dollar serial numbers every time we need them. They don't even physically print it anymore. They just hit a button and the computer says, "Oh, here's a bunch of new electronic money into the system." And everybody wonders why our money is worthless. But here's the thing that nobody tells you. Your dollar has been designed to devalue by a minimum of 2% a year since the 70s. It's been designed that way. Anybody want to tell me why it's been designed that way? Because that makes absolutely no sense to me. Because the more our dollar is worth, the more money you and I have, because it takes less money to buy things. One of the ironies about the minimum wage argument, which I'm sorry, I'm one of those absolutists who believe there actually should be zero government minimum wage mandates, period. Let the market decide. But since there has been a minimum wage for quite some time in the 60s, minimum wage was $1.25 an hour. Everybody talks about that because 5 quarters made of nickel would be worth like $35 today. So it's not a wage problem. It's a devaluation problem. We don't need higher wages. We need our money to be worth more again. Because imagine if making $15 an hour was like having $30 worth of, or an hour worth of spending power. This is the reason why even in the 70s, I remember when my parents bought a car, they bought a brand new car. I mean, it wasn't anything luxurious. It was like a night. I guess it was 78, 79. They bought like a 78 Granada, brand new. Paid like $3,000 for the car, brand fucking new. Because of the buying power that was available for our dollar. Another thing that has devalued our dollar is everything being purchasable on credit now. Because when they realized, well, there's several different things, and I'm not trying to turn the last half hour of the show or the last hour of the show into an economics lesson, but let's explain a few things. The everything you can do, I can do better, and the I can bring home the bacon and fry it up in the pan thing that started happening in the 50s and the 60s, that was a psyop. Because the government realized there weren't the tax base was starting to shrink. So they needed more people working. So they figured out how to make women feel like they were being devalued because they were only housewives. Having done both gigs, because I've been a single father now not once but twice in my life, having to run a household should be a job. It should be considered a job because that never stops. When I'm not on the air and when I'm not trying to do editing and writing and all the other things that I do, I'm constantly having to keep up with 2 adult children with special needs, one of which is a little better off than the other, who has come home because she was involved in a bad relationship, now has a grandchild, and I also help take care of that child too. So I'm constantly doing things, constantly, always on the go, always something. And there are days when I'm just like, can it just stop for 5 seconds? I never saw you. I just saw you now. Hello? But yeah, I didn't even see you till that just popped in. I think you were being filtered again because I never saw you till now. But anyway, hi, welcome to the show. She's gonna go take a nap now just because she finally got my attention. I already know what's gonna happen. All right, but look, all of this is indicative of the same problem. People that don't understand economics, people who don't want you to understand economics, because all of this is coming from the same place. They need you reliant on them much more than you actually need to be reliant on them. That's the problem. They have taught you that you need the government to survive. That should have never been a thing. I'm not mocking your naps. I'm just pointing out a fact. Just saying. But I mean, the thing about it is, what nobody's talking about is, yes, we are in the very beginning stages, but we are actually taking steps to start shoring up our economy again and make it actually something that can stand on its own. Now, this is either going to work or it's not. And whether it works or not is going to be up to me and you. Because if we keep buying into all the fear porn that everybody's pushing, then eventually the momentum's going to go away and we're going to start losing again because everybody's going to be like, oh, we tried it. It didn't work. It was terrifying. We're never doing that again. But the thing that's amusing about all of that is there was a major crash during Biden's term. And the media told everybody not to panic. But there was a major crash because we knew our economy was trash, even if nobody was telling us our economy was trash, because your dollar was worth even less than it was before, which is where the word worthless comes from, by the way, which basically means that, I'm emphasizing the fact that your money's basically worthless right now. All right. I think instead of a break, I think we're going to do something a little different because even though I said I wasn't going to take the show and take this part of the show and turn it into an economics lesson, I kind of feel like we kind of need to, whether I want to or not. So instead of taking a break, we're just going to run a clip from last night's Behind the Enemy Lines. In case you missed it, you'll get a good gist of everything that's going on right now. And then I've got one more clip I want to try to fit in if we can, because Dr. Phil is making waves again. And I just saw a clip about that, but I need to test it out first. So, all right. So hang on. Let me get this queued up for you guys first. And like I said, we're just going to go commercial free for the rest of the show. Too much to try to fit in. I know. I did it to myself. God.
Giggity, giggity, giggity goo.
It's my fault. I get it. I know. I have rules, though. I still have to follow them. Speaking of which, I owe you guys a shenanigans at some point. I didn't hit the button. I said it, but I never hit the button. Why is that? Okay. Why did that not work before? But it is now. All right. Let me make sure that you guys can see it, though, before I start playing it. And you should be good now.
We got to dive into the news of the last few days. The tariffs. That's the big thing.
All right.
People panicking, bro, for no reason.
Now, I do want to give a disclaimer to everyone, just so we can cover our ass here. We're not economists. We are not anywhere near economists. I have a minor in economics from the 20th century, so I know a little something. But we both have common sense, and I think we're going to be talking about here is not necessarily the nuts and bolts of the financial aspect of things, but certainly about the political strategy of that, because we're both adept at discussing that, as well as negotiating.
Everybody got that?
Earlier today, Trump issued a 90-day stay, I guess you would call it, of most of the global tariffs that he was talking about. And his main message to everyone out there, all you Americans watching the show and everybody else in between, just be cool, man.
Well, everybody knew you had to do it, but they never had the guts to do it. It does take guts. It even takes guts for our country to go through it. That's why I say be cool. They were saying about, see, just be cool. It's going to work out. It's going to work out, and it's working out. I can tell you, working out maybe faster than I thought. But I said it's going to take a little conditioning. It's a transition to. It's really, I think, it's a transition to greatness. It's going to be greatness. Our country is going to be, there'll be nothing like it. And people investing in our country, they're going to do better than they've ever done before.
A transition to greatness, my friend. What are your thoughts?
So much like I've said this in the past about Trump, obviously we like Donald Trump, right? I think the man's brilliant. He doesn't always explain things the best. He explains things like a regular person, but then sometimes when it's on the business side of the house, he just assumes, he has the curse of knowledge, where he assumes everyone's tracking along with what he's saying. There's a lot to get into with tariffs, obviously, right? But I just want to start with this one thing. All of the people that have been wrong about damn near everything over the last 20 or 30 years were saying that Trump is about to crash the economy. They actually said it in his first term, too. I trust Trump on this one, okay? This is his forte. If you notice, the rest of his administration is kind of on autopilot. He's got key players leading every secretary level position, and they're doing his bidding without him having to micromanage any of them. So he's focusing in on the economy with his economic advisors. I trust the man. I don't trust the people who told us about COVID or global warming or the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. I don't trust those people, right? So I trust Trump. We'll start there.
Okay, let's take a step back in sort of like the 30,000-foot view of things. I want to take it back to just basic concepts of negotiation. Let's talk about that for a moment. The aspects of negotiation that I think maybe people don't realize that they deal with in their everyday life is that you leverage advantages that you can, minimize disadvantages or flaws on your side, and come to an arrangement that absolutely nobody thinks they won completely. What's going on here, in my opinion, and I said this on social media, I'm going to get to a little bit of some back and forth I had with friends of mine who are Republicans, who consider themselves conservative, who don't like what Trump is doing, and we'll use that as sort of the other side of the argument. What Trump is doing here is not about tariffs. It's not about asserting economic dominance over anyone. What it is about is using tariffs as a tool within his negotiation quiver, let's call it, because you have arrows that kept in the quiver and whatever. I know it's an old reference, but go with me on this. He has these tools that he could leverage in order to assert pressure on the other side of the negotiating table, which would be basically the rest of the world, either individually, collectively, whatever group or region they want to talk about. And Trump is showing his commitment and his will to use tariffs if necessary in order to get what he ultimately wants, which is a reset globally of the economic playing field that has been so neglected by decades of American policy and globalization, to be perfectly honest. So in order to get to that reset point, Trump is using what leverage he has, which is the greatest economy known to man, and is trying to use that to create a new paradigm in global trade and global economics. And that's the premise I gave to people. In fact, my words to my friends were, do you get it now? Do you understand that it's not about the tariff themselves and raising money or changing things up in that respect, but it's really about resetting the balance? And what do you think, first of all, what do you think about what I'm saying here? Are you on board with me with this?
I'm only partially on board with Eugene.
Okay.
So I do agree with you. He's using that tool or whatever that, whatever you were saying about
the arrow in the quiver.
Arrows, So yeah, he's using it as a tool, right? But there's a lot more to it. Sometimes it is just about tariffs, right? Trump is a master negotiator. Yes, that's true. He if you looked at the chart that he was standing out there talking about a couple of days ago, all of the tariffs or other inequities that are against United States exports into other countries or imports into their countries, our tariff rate was going to be half of whatever theirs was, right? Which was much higher than it used to be, but way lower than what they're charging us. At the end of the day, even if someone went to 0% against us, he was keeping a 10% tariff. And that's why I'm saying sometimes it really is just about tariffs. Trump believes, and so do I, that generating revenue from external sources, other countries, is not necessarily a bad thing. China, when it sells something to us on Temu, the profit margin is like 98% on that Chinese-made good you're buying. If you charge China 100% tariff, now their profit margin is 96% instead of 98%. They're going to eat that tariff, and we're going to generate revenue. So sometimes it is just about tariffs. But at the end of the day, like he said, External Revenue Service, 10% across the board. We consume roughly 40% of the world's goods. We make up way less than that in the world's population, right? So in order to gain access to our markets, you might have to pay a tariff to get in. I'm not saying it should be 90%, right? Because then you start incrementally increasing prices here. But at 10% off the top, The government gets its VIG. Hopefully that helps us pay down the debt. I'm all right with that.
What's a VIG? Well, you know how gangsters, they talk about a VIG?
It really is like the mafia sometimes. You got to pay the VIG. Sometimes you got to pay an entrance fee at the door. You know, you got to pay the cover charge. But you raise a good point in that the negotiations are not homogenous. There are negotiations with bad actors like China that use slave wage labor and are able to undercut prices in that respect. And then there's, individual countries that you can negotiate with. And then there's regions like the European Union that you have to negotiate with collectively. And even then, some nations have a VAT, some nations don't. So it's not one size fits all, certainly. But I want to address the comments from this friend of mine that was concerned about Trump tariffs. So let me see if I can do this right, because this is a new feature on here. There it is. And I'm going to embiggen my screen so I can see it now. The comment from my friend when I said, do you get it now? This wasn't about tariffs. This was about the market itself. What does that even mean? Trump already rejected 0-for-0 trade deals and never lifted the auto, aluminum, or steel tariffs. Well, he didn't say that he was lifting them all. He was lifting some. What are the 0-for-0 trade deals that this friend of mine is referencing, pal?
I'm lost. I don't know of any country of significance that charges America a zero tariff at all. Who is that person?
Well,
that
didn't Vietnam offer a 0-for-0 trade deal?
They did after we had to tariff them. Vietnam was killing us with tariffs. I forget. It was one of the higher percentages they were charging us.
Right. So I don't know necessarily if it was a 0-for-0 offer straight up or what the details of it were. But it was proof that Trump's plan worked. By raising those tariffs, he had countries come to the table to offer, let's take this for truth, a 0-for-0 trade deal. That's proof that Trump's strategy was working, because America is the greatest economic engine in the world, in my opinion. And any hurt that a tariff would put on our economy would be felt a lot more on everyone else out there. Why do you think global markets dropped that much and US's drop was tolerable? For the world economy, they were worried about a global recession. Trump was the one making the actions. Everyone else was reacting to it. Even now, Trump says we're going to put a stay on them. The market rebounded. Everyone else is on the back foot. Trump is the one steering the ship here. Let's go to the next sentence. I'll give you a chance to comment on that as well. It's a global tariff rate of 10% when it was closer to 2% when he took office. Is that accurate?
I don't know. No. Well, it's a global tariff rate that we're going to charge everybody bare minimum 10% to gain access to our market, right? But my question is this, Gene. If tariffs are bad and they destroy economies, then why does every country on the planet charge the United States a greater tariff rate than us, including our friends, the Europeans, the Australians? They all have higher tariffs against us than we have against them. If they're so bad and they destroy economies, then why are they doing it to us?
Because they are taking advantage of the global marketplace. Because we've all decided to become a global economy at some point, starting from the 90s and moving forward, the U.S. has allowed a lot of our business, a lot of our industry to leave our country and go to these other places that were being offered more attractive tax rates in some respects, or lower costs of doing business, or cheaper labor, or whatever the case may be, and then charged us to get those goods and services back here. And I think what Trump is doing is trying to reset that globalization that hurt our manufacturing. Why do you think auto and aluminum and steel love tariffs? Because they're now competitive again in their own country. That's why they want those tariffs. And it'll keep producers and maybe even bring producers into America so they can avoid those tariffs.
And you kind of touched on some of the things that are that cause companies to leave the United States to manufacture their goods in other countries and then send them back here and sell them here, right? Lower wages and stuff like that. So you have to ask yourself the question, why are these companies leaving? Well, they're making their T-shirts in China and everything else in your house basically made in China because they have slave labor, like you had mentioned, right? So how do you compensate for that and stay competitive in a free and fair market? Is it a free and fair market when we have unions that demand, and I'm not saying this is wrong, demand a living wage for our workers, a middle class living wage with benefits? The government tells them they have to have health insurance, they have to pay into Social Security. There's a bunch of stuff that we require companies to do here that other countries don't. So when a company is faced with trying to cut costs, they ship their factory to another country and then sell it back here. So is it wrong to charge them a 10% off the top tariff to send their goods back here to access to our market where our companies are paying people living wages? No, it's not. Right? I think 10% is very fair, and anyone who charges us more, I'm with Trump. It's got to be reciprocal.
Like what you see so far? Go ahead and smash that thumbs up button. Also, leave us a comment and tell us what you're thinking. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another show. So the next question from the commenter is, or the next comment I should say from the commenter, is that tariffs are just a huge tax increase on Americans without action from Congress. And going with taxation without representation argument. And to this, I say, what? What ends up happening with a tariff is that the source of the goods and services would change. Instead of getting the goods from overseas, it'll come from domestic production. If you have tariffs overseas on our goods that are exorbitant, and now the other goods aren't coming here, the market has grown for our domestic products to stay domestically here. If we're not getting cars from Japan or from Mexico, let's say, because that's where one of the production places are, then you're going to get cars from American builders, even American builders that are owned by countries outside of us, right? So I'm trying to understand, how is this a tax increase when what this does is really just a substitution of one's goods versus another's goods?
So a couple of points there I just want to hit. One, the 10% across the board. At first, I wanted a little more information on it, and then Trump kind of did, or one of Trump's people explained this pretty well. I think it was Bassett. Let's say Zimbabwe, because they're a developing nation, we charge them 0. China then opens a factory in Zimbabwe and uses them as a pass-through to ship their goods to the United States. So they had to make it 10% across the board to ensure no one cheats at the tariffs. The second piece about the taxes part, left of center people, and even some on the Republican side, I don't understand this. You'll hear them say things. I talked about this a couple weeks ago. You'll hear them say things like the corporate tax in the United States is too low. We need to raise that. The capital gains tax in the United States is too low. We need to raise that. Big corporations need to pay their fair share. They say things like that. A tariff is, in effect, it is a tax. It's a tax on a foreign company, corporation, right? Why do Democrats and rhinos support raising taxes on American companies, but not on foreign companies?
Interesting. Yes, provocative.
Someone needs to explain that one to me.
It's the 80-20 that we've been talking about for weeks and months here on the show. Just skipping down in the comment here, why would any business want to invest in the USA right now under such a cloud of uncertainty? Well, there's choices here, right? So one of the choices would be, if you want to avoid the tariffs, then you invest in America, you bring your production here. That's one way. Or, alternatively, if you want American investment to grow, then this protectionism of certain industries would help, because the tariff would then encourage those who are receiving the benefit of the tariff to increase their own work product here and invest more in America. So you either get investment from one way or investment from the other way.
But
pretty simple to me.
Yeah, but I don't even understand the point of that question, though.
Exactly. Yes.
The point of the tariff, it would be, Trump says this, but it's not really the totally desired outcome to have foreign companies all of a sudden start building stuff in America. That's why I said, like, the tariffs thing is kind of an all of the above with what Trump is trying to do. Yes, it'll be nice if some companies start investing in America and building their factories here. It will also be nice if foreign countries lower their tariffs to the rate we're charging them, or we make a deal with them, we charge zero each way, and they don't cheat by going through a pass-through country, right? And then Americans' goods and services that they're buying from overseas, the prices would actually go down, right? Without them investing in the United States, they would just be selling products here that aren't tariffed, and theoretically it would go down. So there's lots of things that tariffs can do besides being used as leverage for other things, like the bad actors you were talking about. And Trump was like teasing that maybe China will make a deal with TikTok because we could lower tariffs, right? It gives them some leverage there. But sometimes it truly is just about the tariffs. It's not always about those other things.
Right. And the other thing that we're also missing out on here, pal, is it's not the economic policy is not just tariffs. It's tariffs plus other things in the economy. For instance, we're going to be talking about this on another show, but Chris Matthews was having a heart attack over lumber. And where are we going to get our lumber from? He clearly has been to Alaska to see how many trees there are there. So it's not just a tariff on lumber from Canada. It's a tariff on lumber from Canada plus an executive order for the government to do all it can to encourage and support our domestic lumber industry. It's not just a tariff on the European Union. It's finding savings in USAID that will then take the place of any lost revenue from any loss of business as a result of a tariff. It's a balancing act of many different things, of income revenue streams and expenditures that goes along with the tariffs that make them tolerable for the economy.
Yes. And, I hit on some of these before, but I just want to run through them again or add to them. So you mentioned one of them, right? Part of the purpose of a tariff is to raise revenue for the government that's charging it. Another thing is to protect an industry within their own country, like steel, which you kind of need for the military. Lumber would be another good one, right? To build houses, right? So protecting some domestic businesses. And then you have to hedge against, and I mentioned some of these before, that we pay higher pay rates in this country than a lot of other countries, right? How do you compete fairly with a foreign company that's paying slave wages in a lot of instances? How do you compete with foreign countries like China does this because they gain monopolies in certain areas by subsidizing industries at exorbitant rates? We flirt with that idea here too sometimes. But if you subsidize an industry where if it was left to the free market, they would go out of business, but the government's paying more than half the weight, it winds up putting the American company that was competing with it out of business. So how do you compensate for that? You might have to charge a tariff equal to the amount that the government is subsidizing that industry in that foreign country. And then there's a few other things that, Europe has a value-added tax. It's sort of like a federal sales tax. That greatly impacts the cost of things that we ship there to sell. A lot of countries also have rules that are not conducive to the United States doing business there, like China. China, when you open a company in China, they have to have a 51% stake in the business. So they automatically basically own your business when you send it there. You can't sue in Chinese courts if you're not a Chinese citizen. Intellectual property, they don't follow any of the rules with that. They steal it all and then they make knockoffs and sell them back to us. And then the last one, in a place like Mexico, foreigners are not allowed to own land there. So go ahead and try to open a business. You have to rent, possibly from the government, and pay exorbitant fees there too. So they have all these rules set up to make American businesses fail. The only way to sort of equalize that playing field is to charge the tariff on them. You have to until they fix theirs.
And by the way, I know we mentioned a lot of that already, but here's one thing we haven't mentioned. Access to our market. Is there a reason why we should allow a bad actor like China to have unfettered access to our market, to our economy, to our consumer base? Or yes, we get the benefit of cheaper prices, but that's really living off of slave labor, which a lot of people on the left they seem to forget that they're doing every time they use their iPhone. But in all honesty, shouldn't there be, like we said earlier, a cover charge, an entrance fee to have access to the people who are powering the greatest economic engine known to man? I mean, isn't that only fair that the house should get a cover?
I mean, Gene, you can sell items on your front lawn. You might have some implications with the government that might harass you. But if you wanted to open up a stand in a flea market, You got to pay for a booth, right? You want access to that market, you got to pay, right? And we don't want to make it exorbitant because then eventually prices could go up here. But a 10% charge on a country that's making over a 90% profit margin, that's not a problem.
And honestly, when you think about it, moving your business and investing in the U.S. is the same thing as a cover charge. And we're only collecting half the covers at the door. Those that are here and are investing in infrastructure, hiring Americans, paying them, paying sales taxes, paying income taxes in certain cases. Obviously there are loopholes to get around all that. But spending money here in order to make money here, yet those from outside expect to get free entry and to block us when we look for the same. I mean, when I heard about a Canadian tariff on dairy that was criminal, in my opinion, at how high it was, I'm saying to myself, how do we let it get this far? And the answer is, honestly, and this sounds like a buzzword we're going to say, but globalists. We've been trying to build a global economy because we thought sort of a Gallowayism here that a rising tide lifts all boats. It hasn't seemed to work that way because you still have bad actors not playing by the rules, among other things, among value-added taxes, among high rates when you enter a market, or you want to, or they require you to invest in that country, or whatever the case may be. All the other barriers of entry that are out there. Why is it rules for us but not for anybody else? The answer is because they know that we can afford it. And that's what makes the Trump plan and his approach to this genius. He's saying, we're cutting off the gravy train for you guys. You've had an advantage for 30 years, and now it's time for that advantage to go away.
The line must be drawn here. This far, no farther.
Trump is saying that it's time to shift the paradigm, and it's not about the issuance of a tariff. It's using tariffs in a certain way to convey your message and to gain the biggest advantage you can possible in this realignment that Trump wants to do.
Yep. And I'd say, number one, most people probably still, but definitely 2 weeks ago, had no idea what a tariff was. It's something they mentioned in like 7th grade history class, and they forgot all about it. They don't know what they are. They don't know what they're for. Most people don't know what they are. When they figured out what they were, the ones that did, most of them were shocked, because I was, at the tariff rates that are being imposed on the United States. I had no idea some of them were that far out of control, because even the Republicans for decades now have been touting free and fair trade. That's the way to go. It hasn't been free and fair.
No, it hasn't.
You had mentioned something else about these other countries selling into our markets, and it's because we're rich and we can afford it. It's funny because I was thinking about this earlier today. One of the arguments is like these developing countries, or especially after World War II, Europe was destroyed. Let's lower tariffs, allow them to export into the United States at low cost or no cost, free and fair trade, a rising tide will lift all boats, right? But then I started thinking about, so what has the United States been doing over the last 50 years plus? We print money, we go into debt, while other countries are fleecing us, and many of those countries are buying our debt. We owe China about $5 trillion out of our massive 30-some-odd trillion dollar deficit, right? That is completely insane that a developing country owns over $5 trillion of our debt. They got a stranglehold on us.
Right. So we need to start doing some debt service. And the way we do debt service is to make more disposable income for everybody to spend more, so we can collect more taxes and we can raise more income from everyone. And if we're not looking at a revenue stream from outside the country to that end, then are we just going to keep on going further and further into debt? What is that the plan? What is the alternative? Is what I'm asking, kind of. What else can be done instead of raising taxes on hardworking Americans? And the whole idea of the millionaires and the billionaires that they want to think is going to be this panacea for raising more and more money, bilk them till they're dry.
I'm the last registered Democrat. Tax and spend, tax and spend.
what is the plan? What is the alternative to what Trump is doing here?
Yeah, I mean, Gene, either we protect manufacturing and our industries here in some way, shape, or form, or we'll all be working at Walmart or Starbucks selling Chinese-made goods. Like, that is the alternative, right? If we don't produce things here and we just consume things from other countries, that's the alternative.
If you like that clip from our new show, Behind Enemy Lines, please subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any other shows, and tune in live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time.
All right, so calling an audible. I may save the Dr. Phil stuff for tomorrow because this just came across my feed, and I think it's more important for now. I mean, yes, our education system sucks. We understand that. And BZ, I would also like to point out I have been keeping up with you in the chat, and I would also like to point out I'm one of those folks whose business went under during that Obama limbo. That's when my company folded, and I started working for other people again because there was just too much going on and too much uncertainty. And even though I was using a factoring company to get my invoices covered and everything else, eventually the factoring company said, hey, we've gotten 2 unpaid invoices from this group, so we're not honoring your invoices anymore. And about a month later, I was pretty much out of business. And it all happened. It all started even before Obama took office. That was the scariest thing of all. He hadn't even been sworn in yet. And this is honestly from about 4 months, because it was November of 2000. No, actually, no, it was just after the election. So we're talking about from November of 2008 until February of 2009. By March of 2009, I was working for another security company while still trying to hold on to one remaining contract because I had to start letting them go. And then eventually, I even let go of that one. And then I got in trouble with the boss of the new company because after being my own boss for like 10 years, I got in trouble for not following their rules because I thought my rules were better. So I got let go from there. And then I started doing call center work, and the rest is history because I didn't really know what else to do. And I was a mess for a couple of years. I'm not even going to pretend I'm not. Losing that business nearly destroyed me, which was around the same time that I finally decided it was time to start speaking out. And in some cases, I think my now ex-wife wishes I never did, because when I was dejected, I was really quiet and basically just let her do whatever she wanted. And then eventually I started finding my voice again, and she decided she didn't like that very much. But that's a story for another day. The story for right now is this, and the reason I called an audible is there have been some interesting things coming out with Doge and with the state versions of Doge that are cropping up all over the place. This one is new. I just saw this, so we're going to play a video clip of it first. So hang on. At least I'm going to try to anyway. They've been being cranky today, so we're going to do a test. Because, yeah, we are almost out of time, so I won't be able to spend too much time on this. But
Fox to reveal what's really going on. Doge exposed our immigration asylum disaster. That was the tip of the iceberg. Now, here's the story. Doge has found that immigration gave a work authorization document to illegals just 5 months after they filed for asylum. That document allowed them to work while they waited to hear whether their asylum request had been accepted or denied. So they could work as an illegal, knowing it would take years before their case was heard. The Immigration Department mailed them a Social Security number. No interview, no proof of identity. Just put it in the mail. Here's your number. In 2021, Doge says 270,000 new aliens were issued Social Security numbers, 590,000 in 2022, 964,000 in 2023, and 2.1 million in 24, right before Biden left office. Doge also discovered that 1.3 million aliens are now receiving Medicaid. Millions received driver's licenses, some registered to vote, and Doge says some actually did vote. Try and square that against Democrat claims that Musk is destroying Social Security and cutting Medicaid. He's not destroying. He's weeding out people who don't qualify. Who is really guilty of misinformation in this case? It is not Elon Musk.
All right, so the reason I wanted to play that clip, we played a similar one earlier in the week, but there's new stuff. So not only is all that going on,
Elon Musk and Doge have uncovered yet another avenue of fraud, massive unemployment fraud under the Biden administration. Some of the numbers they are bantying about right now: 245,000 people allegedly over 115 years old claimed $59 million in unemployment benefits during COVID. 28,000 supposed children between the ages of 1 and 5 claimed $254 million worth of unemployment benefits. Now, I would like to point out that as far as I know, slave labor in this country is illegal. So is children working that are below a certain age. So I'm not even sure how these things got approved. Now, those aren't even the worst ones, right? So obviously we have at least 24,500 vampires in America. But here's this. We have time travelers too. 9,700 claims requesting unemployment from people with future birth dates totaling $69 million. So this isn't just a clerical error or a minor oversight. The numbers are staggering. According to the Doge team's findings, thousands of claims were approved for people who haven't even been born yet. I'm telling you, time travel is real. One approved claim came from someone supposedly born in 2154 who managed, I'm telling you, time travel is real, who managed to collect $41,000 in benefits. As Dr. Emmett Brown would say, great Scott. This represents a catastrophic failure of the most basic verification processes in our country. How does anyone in the unemployment office look at a claim from someone born in 2154 and think, yeah, that's square? So, look, with everything else Doge has found, with all of the waste, fraud, and abuse that is being uncovered in places like California that are now looking at all their money they've tried to invest in their homeless problem and they didn't go anywhere, they're now finding 36% of the people applying for student aid in California don't even fucking exist. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You want to talk about how to make our money worth something again? We have to stop our government, state, local, and federal from wasting our money, because the more they waste of it, the more they have to print of it, which makes it even worth less. And this is what Doge is trying to fix. If we can carve out all the people that shouldn't be getting these benefits and access to these things, this makes it last even longer. So instead of what you and I have been hearing from basically the moment we were born, by the time you're old enough to collect Social Security, it's not even going to be there. Fine, then give me my damn money now so I can invest it. The other thing that I never have understood, right, with the way our government prints money, and yes, I'm about to take a little left turn into commie land, but with the way our government prints money, they should be, if we're really going to go down this road, they should be able to basically predict how much money you should be able to make throughout your lifetime using Social Security, assuming that you start working, say, from age 18 until 65. Figure out what your maximum contribution amount would be. Set you up a trust with a universal basic life insurance policy and just leave the money there, and you cannot even access it or look at it or touch it until you decide to file for retirement. You guys realize what that would do? Think about that for a second. The max you can put into Social Security is $10,000 annually. So assuming that they even put you at that cutoff and then say that you work, say, what would that be? Doing the math in my head, roughly 50, 40, what? So let's just do 20 because that makes the math easier. That would be 45 years. So it would be 47 years if you started working at 18 and actually took retirement at 65. If they just took all of that money, which is not very much if you think about it at the federal government level, you're talking about 48 years at $10,000 a year. That's what, $48,000? No, that wouldn't be right because that'd only be $1,000. $480,000. Our government can find that in the couch cushions with the way they do shit. So if they just took that, locked it into something that they couldn't touch, and made it to where you can't even touch it until you retire, you would be independently wealthy and you would not require any assistance from the government. I mean, if we're gonna do crazy talk, let's actually do fucking crazy talk that works, because that would work. Think about that for a second. They wouldn't even have to put it in all at once. They could cut that in half and give you $250,000, basically $250,000, just to make the math easy, on the day you were born, or actually you just wait until once you've gotten a Social Security number and they know that you exist, apparently, unless they're not checking birth dates and don't realize that you're from the future. They could take that money, cut it in half, put it into a trust that you can't access until you're 65 or even 70 years old, and just let it sit there and make you money until the day that you need it. But the reason they can't do these things, the reason they won't do these things is because, and this is the biggest flaw of our government. If they actually fixed what was broken, they would not become obsolete, but they would become a different term that is used primarily in computers and programming. It's a term called obsolescent, which is nearly useless. If our government did its job appropriately, it would become nearly useless. And they can't have that because you are their gravy train. Our government has become the ticks feeding off of me and you. That is what Donald Trump is exposing. That's what Doge has exposed. That's what we're now finding at pretty much every state level. I even talked about some of it that's happened here. There was a large barbecue chain in Oklahoma that got a government contract, and they did what every chain does or every group does when they get a lucrative government contract. They started adding on the Vic. Yes, I'm using that mob term again. Or I guess it's actually the VIG. I keep wanting to make that a hard C. I don't know why. But yeah, they started adding on the VIG, basically adding to it. They padded the bill. They're like, oh yeah, we can kick this up by another 30, 40%. The state's good for it. And then they got caught. And then the governor got in trouble because the governor was the one that basically, allowed it to be approved and had no idea that they were padding the bill. So, but such is politics, such is life, and such is human nature. Speaking of politics, life, and human nature, we've reached the end of our time together. Don't forget, I will be back tonight pushing buttons first for the Disasters in the Making crew starting at 8 p.m. Eastern. Then myself and Jen Homestead should be back doing Jen and Rick's show at 10 p.m. Eastern. And then make sure you come hang out for our closing act over in BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon for Last Call, where the facts are never watered down and neither are the drinks. They're not free, but at least they're not watered down. We're out of time, folks. At this point, I do have to tell you, this one, she is officially over.
What? Over? Did you say over? Nothing is over until we decide it is. Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Hell no!
Closing time. Open all the doors and let you out into the woods.
This isn't over until I say it's over!
Closing time.
Well, that's great. That's just fucking great, man. Now what the fuck are we supposed to do? Game over, man. It's game over.
Closing time. Time for you to go out to the places you will be from. Closing time. This room won't be open till your brothers or your sisters come.
I love you, Oklahoma. What a great crowd. I love you.
Say goodnight, Gracie. All right, folks, again, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for hanging out in the chat. Thanks for liking and sharing, but we got to go. Back tonight.